I much prefer now that we read the book.
Oh yes.
Geralt rather than
Sure.
Cavill's because Cavill's was a little too grunty. But you can't beat the presentation. The beginning of Man of Steel when he was like bearded and hairy.
I thought they were going to do something really cool
That's
with
a
that.
vibe.
I know.
That's a vibe. Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast, Unresolved Textual Tension. It's me, your glamorous host, Maria, and today, in the flesh, my handsome bitches, Katie and William. Ooh, so handsome.
What's up,
so
people?
bitchy.
We exist in the same plane of existence.
I'd like to clarify that I'm the handsome one and he's the bitchy one.
I think you're going to be getting
How
some
the turns have tabled.
I think you're going to be getting some interesting assignments from now on, Katie, when it comes to books.
Yeah, whatever.
I'll find gross ones for you. Okay, guys. The book we're doing today is The Witcher
by Andrzej Sapkowski.
People get very upset when I mispronounce names. So
Yeah, that's why she literally interrupted you in the middle of...
Yeah, they get real butthurt. It is probably better known for the video game and the television series starring Henry Cavill. But it was, it also was a really well-known fantasy book for a long time. It's like one of the few successful English translations from just another language at all to make headway in the U.S. This is the first book, which is really like a bunch of short stories. He put a framing device around, and it's like 5 short stories.
Is that the way all the books are?
No, I think 2 of the other ones are, and then he has like 4 actual novels, I think.
That's I really like the concept of being able to have the freedom to explore your character with those short stories and then just put a frame story around it and say, hey, that's a novel. But then meanwhile have the big epics in between. I never thought that you could get away with that because I thought it was unorganized, but it really, like the way it is, it works.
I think that for a framing device, this is one that, and where he tried to make the individual events feel like the individual short stories within it feel connected to what was being spoken about. I won't say what was happening, but what was being spoken about in the framing story. So let's just start with how did we feel about this, guys? How did we feel?
It was so much better than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be really dry because I haven't read any of the books. So I thought, based off the video game, because the video game is like, it's a kind of like drawn out for a video game. So in a way, you can almost call people would probably get upset if I called it dry. But what I mean is that it's got
people have leveled that at the game before.
Yeah. And so I was expecting kind of like, Tolkien-esque like verbiage and such. And so when I started reading, I was like, oh my God, this is so readable. This is like, and then also I liked the narrator a lot for the audiobook. It was pretty fun.
Oh yeah, he does a lot of accents. I actually had to slow down how fast I listened because I could not understand some of his accents.
Yeah, like the country people at the edge of the world.
Yeah.
That was so funny. You are now acquiring their way of speaking.
Yeah,
that was really, I just couldn't believe. Also, the fact that this isn't a translation, I'm so curious. I just feel iffy on reviewing. I feel weird reviewing books sometimes with translations. It's because, not that I've like done so many or that we've done so many, but I feel like, well, what was lost and like how accurate is it? And like, but regardless, the book in English is magnificent. It's so fun.
I really enjoyed it. I really wish I had found it when I was younger because I could feel like this would become one of my formative books to have read. But like, I mean, so this book is messy in that it really is clearly like 3 short stories he wrote and then was like, oh, I could turn this Witcher into like a real thing. And then he wrote 3 more short stories that are different from the first 3. And then he was like, let me put a frame story around it that actually doesn't make a ton of sense. And so, because it really is just like, it doesn't add up to anything in its own right.
No, it does though. It's because it's the last, like the thing is I think what the biggest problem is that he needed to weave Yennefer into it way more often. It's because that's the whole thesis. His last wish is to have his fate bound with Yennefer.
No, but the framing device has nothing to do with Yennefer or the last.
It does though. It's because remember, he's sick, he's ill, but that doesn't get really elaborated on. And then there's his fate coming up to get him. The reason his fate is coming up to get him is not really explained, but it is inferred that it has to do with the last wish.
No,
which is,
no,
yes,
no, no.
it is.
It's his fate coming to get him is the child surprise.
No.
That has nothing to do with Yennefer.
That's what I'm saying, though, is that is what we know it to be, but they frame it in the way that it's supposed to, because that's what the last story is about.
So, William, any other thoughts about your general thoughts about how you felt about it?
I thought it was messy. I felt like sometimes he wasn't quite able to build a coherent theme in the stories, but he's always able to craft really like lines that really hit you. I think that he's also really good with characters and fairly good with dialogue. I went into this, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but our Discord, because this was a book club, had opinions about the book that I was disappointed to not find to be true.
He was promised more titties.
Yeah, and it was not delivered.
There were, as we discussed last night at length, there are plenty of titties.
We'll get into it.
So now I finished the book. Less titties than I thought, and I'm the biggest complainer about the titties.
Phobe.
First off, I want to clarify something that I see happening in the comments. I liked Cavill as Geralt before I read the book, and I still like him. I think he's good. I just like I liked his presence. He's got a good vibe. He's funny as Geralt, and obviously like stupid attractive. But I like the personality. So this is a difference. I like the personality of book Geralt better than show Geralt, and I don't think Cavill. Yeah. I don't think that's like Cavill necessary. I think that's the way the script wrote Geralt. They took and so I just want to say that I liked Cavill as Geralt. I just liked the personality he has in the book more. Anyway,
what are your thoughts?
My thoughts. I enjoyed this way more than I thought I was going to. I didn't think it was going to be as like archaic and dry as Katie thought it was going to be. My brother had read it and had mentioned some stuff to me. I don't know. I thought I just wasn't going to like connect. Like what I wasn't expecting to be was to be at all emotionally affected at any point. And I also expected it to be hella booby and hella and listen. The book opens in a way that does not set it up for success as far as...
It's like the beginning of Berserk, as I said last night. It is like the beginning of Berserk. It is completely out of, like...
So Valerie makes the important point. 14 total breasts. References on PDF search. 3 of them breastplates, 1 of them a verb. Okay, so...
oh my god, Valerie. Jesus!
Valerie came with the receipt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Valerie is a Witcher fan. And I get it. I really liked it.
And so, yeah, I really ended up enjoying it. Like I said, I read the first opening bit and I was like, oh no, stop. Because I'd seen the comments in the Discord and then that opening and I was like, this is gonna be like, I don't want to say my hackles were raised, but like my cringe was raised. Like the ick, she was icking. And then like the book started and there are a couple points where we get some boob descriptions.
I loved all the boob descriptions.
But I actually really liked the story. I liked that there was a nuanced cast of female characters. I liked that he just comes to fairy tale tropes and retellings with a really fun sense of exploration that we don't get right now. A lot of fairy tale retellings are, how can I fix this? How can I make this thing that I like conceptually but is mayhaps a tad problematic in the modern viewpoint, and how can I make it like not that, you know? How can I take the
Hades and Persephone?
The Hades and Persephone or the like the beast keeps the girl in the castle for a while.
Yeah.
Like how do I make that work better and because a lot of time fairy tale retellings are romance based.
But then you get yourself stuck in a corner.
Yes, and when you try to make things just because a huge problem, and we talked about this in a lot of the romantasy read, is that there's no teeth to anything.
Yeah,
all the characters have to be extra special good boys and girls, so there's no nuance.
Extra bad.
But even when they're bad, they're like not actually.
No, it's just like
resand. The most toothless sold as a bad boy I've ever come across. And this was some fairy tale retellings that was literally like, this is an interesting concept. What is a way I can engage with it that is interesting? And I really enjoyed.
Yeah, no, I really did too, and especially in the first 3, which are more like more like, oh, I have a vague idea for a character and some storytelling retellings before he gets into more of the lore
Yeah.
stuff.
My least favorite one was Renfried, but that's fine.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like the reference to Snow White. I thought it was lame.
In
Yeah.
terms of reconstruction, yeah, it doesn't make a ton of sense. But.
So I do want to just highlight a comment if you can grab
Angry
it.
Otter?
Angry Otter says, let me just say that this isn't my comment about.
Yeah, we're gonna
I
discuss
was-
it more in depth. I was just disappointed.
Yeah, so for me, there is some sexism in this book that is not
I just
boobies
wanted to read it.
descriptions.
Unhover off.
Yeah.
So Angry Otter says reducing the whole sexism argument to people complaining about too many titties is a bit disingenuous because that's not what was happening. And so there's two things. I read that there was going to be sexism, but I also read there was going to be a lot of titties. I think it was Thea.
Yes.
Made a pie chart that was like descriptions of clothes and other stuff, and then like 90% titties, which is hysterical.
Look, at least the titties were well described. I personally would frame the scene of Yennefer in the bubble bath
Yeah.
on my wall.
That one's pretty funny, yeah. But yeah, we're going to get into more of a discussion of it. I'm just talking about how this book was sold to me a certain way, and then I didn't find it to be that way, and that was disappointing.
Yeah, and I went into the book.
Will is also teasing. There is a tease.
No, I'm serious.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm always serious, intellectual, man. I need to get a haircut. I just realized.
But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. There is some problems. It is messy. It is by no means a perfect book. But I did find myself like engaged, and it was very readable.
Yeah, no, I that was the other thing that struck me is that it's very readable. There's also just there's an earnestness to it of like, this is just a guy writing a fantasy story, and he's actually pretty smart. And you can see that in the way that Gerald is not like the brooding loner. He's actually just a very normal guy in most ways.
He's a retired frat bro. Like, no, I really liked whoever it is that said it. Somebody in the final thoughts said, I think, if I remember correctly, said it's just like he's a guy that like really wanted to be really good at his job. It's a really, really like intense job, and that job is no longer relevant. And he's going like that's really the biggest theme, and I feel like that really like pervades the video game and the show as well. Is that the death of an era?
Yeah. No, that does pervade it as well. And this book, I think, again, does it even better. Okay, go ahead.
Angry Otter does clarify. I think Thea was talking about descriptions only, not like the amount of book that has titties, which is fair. But like, I saw that and was like, I went in because again, I assumed it was going to be very male gazy, and the opening was like boobs over face. So I went in, I saw that pie chart, and I went, this is just every woman I'm going to get a description.
Literally everyone was complaining about it, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be, and listen, there is some sexism here.
We will talk about it, because there is, it's a messy book in that way, and there's
Is it bad of me to...
Yes. But we'll get into that more later. I think overall...
I'm glad you guys know, though.
Why don't you give us the basic premise? And then I think what we can do is we can break it down story by story.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is a fantasy world that it's kind of like, what if you took medieval times and added monsters and some magic, as most fantasy is. But in this world, there are like mythical monsters and real monsters. And to deal with those real monsters, there is a group of people who are humans that have been kind of mutated into not-humans.
It's a guild.
It's a guild. And you become a witcher. And witchers are paid for hire monster murderers.
What a great name, though. The Witcher.
I know, I always thought that was...
I mean, that is what they were called, but like also, like that was an old term, but like that is such a
even as a kid,
term.
I was like, oh, that's a good... Damn, he thought of that and I didn't.
I know.
And like I said, we've mentioned the main character of this is Geralt. He is
of Rivia.
Geralt of Rivia. He is our Witcher, and as we mentioned, the story has a framing device, which is Geralt beat up this one monster. He then gets his throat slit and has to go hang out with his priestess lady buddy friend in this.
Who's like I just pictured as like
McGonagall?
I was actually gonna say Whoopi Goldberg. Um,
You know, funnily enough,
yeah, she gives
Yeah.
me Whoopi Goldberg.
but like because there's a moment where they talk about her being like kind of plump.
yeah,
So like a plump Whoopi Goldberg, or
Mm.
just like
I'm thinking of like Sister Act.
yeah. I liked her, but anyway, and while he's at her temple, he thinks through stuff, and we get these, or stuff comes up in conversation that then opens up the door for little stories that are Geralt's exploits. And Will mentioned that it very much feels like these were individually written short stories, or a couple of them were, that eventually the author was like, I can weave these together and make something a bit more holistic. And some of the stories feel much more connected to an overarching story than the first three did, which feel much more separate. But yeah, that's it. Geralt is he's a sassy, funny, chill guy. He's a blue collar worker out there.
Yeah.
He is.
I think Valerie, was that you called him a blue collar
Someone
worker?
in the final
But
thought.
look at Chris's
Yeah.
comment. I love that.
Hexer was the first translation of Widman, then they later changed it into Witcher. Smart.
Yeah, that was incredibly good decision because Hexer is. I cannot believe you just put that there.
It's nothing.
So rude.
Oh,
What?
Still
How
rude.
was it? What was it gonna do?
Like,
It could break over there too.
I don't care about the break thing. I don't mean for me. I meant for him.
Yeah,
yeah, I thought it was.
it's empty.
What were we saying? Yeah, so that's the basic premise. It's, it's very much a setup for, like, I want my character to be able to go around this world and explore different story tales. And the setting is not super realistic, which I think helps because it lets him do kind of different things that he wants.
Yes. It also, this book sets up what are going to become two major plot lines and two major characters in Geralt's story going forward, which I only know because I've watched people play the video game, specifically Wild Hunt, which is, I think, the third one.
Mhm.
And I've watched the first two seasons of the TV show.
Oh, yeah, I've watched the first season.
And so this book is the setup / kind of origin story for these things that will come to fruition, one assumes, in later books. And that is Ciri, who's a character that is not named at all, but is a fetus in this book, and Yennefer, which are...
Who is not a fetus.
who is not a fetus. She's a full-blown sorcerer lady. And they're two significant characters in Geralt's continuing story. So that's this book is, like...
Yeah.
adventurously written, let's say.
I think most of the stories in this one, I think, get adapted in the first season of the show. So that was interesting because
No,
I did watch the
I think
first
it's the
season.
second season.
No.
Most of them are from the first.
sure?
The Beast
Yeah.
one is in the second season from what
So-
I...
I just the fish one.
No, the Beast one.
The beast one and the fish one are both in the second, right? Oh no,
No.
the fish one's in the first. That's right.
Yes,
I'm
the
getting
fish
it all
one's in
mixed
the
up.
first, the Striga's in the first.
Yeah,
It's
you're
literally
right.
the 1st
You're right.
episode.
You're right.
What
You're
is
right.
in the second season is
The Beast.
Neville,
Yeah.
Navin,
Something
yeah,
Polish.
the Beast, and besides, and the Temple of the Priestesses is only comes up into the second season, but besides that, all the rest of the stories
Yeah.
happen.
I think they adapted the fish scene actually fairly well for her.
Yeah, the funny thing is
Which one's the fish scene?
with
The genie.
yes,
Yennefer.
Kara and Jennifer.
By the way, that was so much funnier in the book than it was in the
Yeah.
show.
Yes, it was.
The book is actually quite funny when it wants to
Okay,
be.
it's because Geralt is actually engaging with Dandelion. He's not just a grumpy guy grunting all the time.
Yeah, he's having. So that's what I really, really liked. The more you read, is you got to see more and more of his like not the bad boy persona,
Mhm.
and that was really nice. He is kind of like almost like a grandpa in a way in a lot of instances,
Mhm.
and I think that's funny. But you know what also really works too is the fact that a lot of the side characters are just uneducated, and so because of because again he's a blue collar worker. But anyway, because a lot of the side characters are, and I don't mean main side characters, those people are usually in some way smart or clever or something. But because a lot of the people Geralt works with and everything, I feel like it really brings forth a lot of comedy. It's because Geralt has he's written with a sense of humor. So between that and the silliness of some of the
Mhm.
like situations, and it's almost like a comedy throughout it as well.
The Last Wish story specifically felt like a little comedic to me,
Yeah.
but in a way that really worked. Like, Dandelion, which is what I'm going to call him, and or Dandelion, He because that's how it's pronounced in the video. His mantra of like, and we're gonna put his face, we're gonna put the catfish's head.
Oh
for
no,
soup.
that's so funny.
I don't know why that was so funny though.
And he was so desperate. You could tell
He's
he
so hungry.
Yeah, and then when it got away, and he was like, God, he's like, damn it. And then I just really love that he was like, no, you wouldn't have caught shit. I put this online.
Yeah, that was so funny.
They're so. It really is a funnier book than the show was.
The show was too serious.
And again, it's just that Geralt is sassy and engages with people and has wit. And it's just the show. Again, I'm not blaming Cavill for this. I don't think this was his choice. He seems really into wanting things to be more accurate than less accurate.
But you have to ask yourself, what's his interpretation of how Geralt is?
Yeah, I mean that's true. I don't ever know that I would have loved him as Geralt. I think he has too much of a wholesome pretty boy feel to him. But like I do think he probably wanted it to be more accurate to the book because he is kind of crazy, Mads Mikkelsen.
I don't really like that fit. There isn't a levity to him that works for that.
If you've watched Hannibal,
I've watched Hannibal.
Of course, she's watched Hannibal.
There is great levity there.
She's into science fiction.
I did read a lot of
Hannibal was a breeding ground. Get
Ew,
real.
please don't say it like that. That sounds so gross. Anyway, so yeah. Where are we at?
I don't know. Let's talk about the first story.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about the opening and deal with that. So the opening of this book is Geralt in bed, sleeping, and he smells like some nice perfume, and then a naked woman like wakes up and then runs her boobs over his face.
It's a very actually kind of funny description because he's just like, oh.
Well, I was like, this is odd. Like, I actually forgot that this was the opening for a good half of the book until you reminded me yesterday. Because it's not really of a part with the rest of the book.
It has nothing to do. It's a moment where you're like, what is the purpose of this scene? And because it doesn't tell you who Geralt is as a character, because it absolutely does not at all. There's no characterization. It doesn't tell you what kind of book this is going to be, because if you read that, you're going to think, ooh, this is going to be smutty, sexy time. It isn't. There's a lot of the times when sex happens, he'll be like, and they tried their best to be loving and caring, and neither of them had a lot of experience with it, but they wanted to, so they did it. And like, so it doesn't do that, and it's like, it has the vibe that like, this is a guy's book. This is guy fantasy. We like boobs here, and it's just a really weird opening.
You know what's funny is I straight up I was like, okay.
I was gonna say I didn't quite read that much into it because it's so fast. Like
Yeah.
I also like. My first introduction to The Witcher, or not my first introduction, but my first, big obsession over is when the third one came out in particular. And all I keep thinking about is the trailer where it's like, ah, la, 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 and it's just like boobs. Like,
I did not see that, but I will look that up.
There's like two, it's the redhead, whoever that is. I forget.
Triss.
Yeah, Triss is just like, and it's like boobies.
That's so funny. I don't remember that, but.
Yeah, and so the opening just doesn't do anything at all. Like, it's a weird vignette of an image that has nothing to do
Again,
with...
the Berserk thing, if you know what I'm talking about.
It's so bizarre.
Not the horse.
Sorry, go ahead.
And it also, like, it what it represents is the, like, one of the... I forgot who it was, but someone mentioned that, a lot of the pretty women just throw themselves at Geralt, and
who wouldn't?
There is a sense of I find him a little bit more nuanced, but there is a sense of like Geralt is like the ultimate, like he's got the appropriate like attitudes. He's good at everything he does.
He brought the apple juice. He brought the apple juice.
Like he is like the peak of...
Okay, I gotta fight back.
No, not the peak of masculinity, but the peak of like
what a woman wants in a man.
Like there's a thing there that I think is indulging
in 100%
a little bit of fantasy.
It is 1,000,000%. Because I myself as a woman was like, oh my god, that's so hot. And then I was like, okay, I see what he's doing.
I thought going into this, Geralt was going to be a badass loner who like, you know,
Because
didn't
you
talk to
watched the show.
people.
Yeah.
He walks, you know what I mean? And he is a dork. And so maybe there is some wish fulfillment. Like I really like Gerald as a character, but I never felt like he was being overly indulged in too much. Yes, he has sex with like 3 people in the book.
But he's like humanized. What's nice is he literally feels human.
Yeah, he does. Oh,
Which
that's
is
like a theme
hysterical.
because he's a...
the theme of humanity. And so
I gotta move this a little bit because I'm really out of frame.
Oh,
goodbye, Katie.
Yeah.
Who needs you? We don't even like you.
I was gonna make it equal, but you know.
But yeah, so I do agree that I do think he was a dork, but I think he was the kind of like, I think what he's the kind of guy the author idolizes. He's not the kind of guy that like, because I think the dark loner broody guy is what like a different sect of men idolizes, but he's smart. He's surprisingly educated. Like people make snap decisions about Geralt, and then he's like, "Oh, you thought, you know." So
yeah, I love that though. That's so satisfying to read when it's not gimmicky, and it does not quite cross gimmicky.
But the point is, I think he is for Sapkowski a idolized.
Yes, I will agree, but I don't think he's full on with fulfillment.
No, I won't say full on.
And especially not in the way that you normally get. Like he gets smacked down a lot in these books.
I love it.
Look at Valerie's comment.
You just know you just know he was the annoying kid in philosophy class.
Yeah.
Both the author and Gerald himself.
Yes, we're the annoying kids in the
philosophy.
It's fine.
Murder me. Anyway, so that's the opening, and then after that, we dive into a great adventure story that is just fantastic. And this is, I forgot what it's called, but it's the Striga story. One moment, let me go look at.
So basically, one of the things I liked immediately is, okay, so the Witcher comes into a bar, he beats up some people, and then the local town lord guy is like, hey, we need you to help kill this thing that's been haunting our lands, and then it...
Wait, isn't this how he gets to the priestesses?
Yes.
Yeah.
But this happens...
It's the first story.
I understand.
Right. And so basically, what I liked almost immediately is that the book enters into, like, price negotiations between Geralt and the other guy. And there's a real sense that this is the blue collarness of it, where it's like, oh no, this is just like a job, and people in this world also...
He's a plumber. He's gonna come get the shit out of your pipes.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of people who, like, have different motivations for wanting this monster dead, and that already shows a complexity to the world and an agency to other characters that they don't just exist for Geralt to look good in comparison to, unlike a lot of books we've read.
Yeah, like how each of these people have their own use for the situation. So there's a lot of politicking.
Yeah, there's a lot of finickiness of like characters being like, well, I want this or I want that kind of a thing. Yeah. And so like right from the beginning, like the book does get a little telly sometimes, in terms of like them telling you the backstory of a thing. But it didn't really bother me.
That's one thing that the show did with this particular story is he learns what happens with that the king had sex with his sister as he investigates. Yeah. They do it in a show way a bit more, which does add, because I was thinking about it, it adds a bit more stakes and where this book immediately just tells you what the situation was. You find out that this is the guy that maybe set the curse, where in the show it's a bit more of a surprise.
You know what it is? It's the first 3 stories. It's Sapkowski had an idea for a fairy tale being weird, and then the Witcher comes in and deals with that fairy tale. Whereas the last 3 stories feel like they were centered on Geralt to begin with as a story idea, and so there's an extent to which he just wants to tell you the story because it's not actually about Geralt. I don't know why Geralt like investigating it, but you're right. Investigating is a smart move on the part of the show.
And this is one of the stories where I think the show did a really good job in its adaptation of, more so than most of the other episodes were there. I won't say the show was superior, but I just think they did a really good job in adapting this particular story. Partially because the majority of it happens with Geralt in a dungeon with somebody else, so you're not slapped in the face with the fact that his personality is like superior in the book. but and the story of this one is there was this king who had the hots for his sister, and him and his sister did stuff. She got preggers. This other guy was super in love with her and was upset about it and accidentally cursed her, so she gave birth to a Striga, which is a cursed child that may or may not be able to be reversed. And basically, you think the child is dead, and then it comes out of its coffin as this weird bat monster thing, and it like kills people, especially on the nights of the full moon. And so, for the past 7 years or 14 years, this Striga has just been causing chaos, and that nobody lives in the old castle anymore. They built a new castle. People,
I like that.
the edges,
Because it's like, oh, we have enough money.
Yeah, let's just do that.
the edges of the city around it are like abandoned. People pulled away, but like people are still getting eaten by the Striga, and the king also wants to get his daughter back and wants to try save her. And so he has offered 3,000 of their currency to do so.
Which is not gold pieces.
No.
Oh my god, it's so great. Later in the story, they have a thing about the conversion of what it would convert into in this other currency.
And how it was smarter to get it in stones.
I fucking love that stuff.
It makes it feel like a lived-in world.
Yeah, and it makes it feel real. And again, there's a certain like everydayness to the interactions, and that like you have to convert your currency. Everybody's going.
I also, what's also really interesting is just the like usually when you get like a fantasy story or something like that in a short amount of time, you don't usually like expand beyond the borders of the one country you're within. So it's kind of cool to see the international politics and like how there's many kingdoms or many like countries or whatever. And then even so far as beyond that, where you get to the edge of the world, where it's more like municipalities of like really poor farmers,
and also like cults of personality that come up within the story. So yeah, the world building of this feels really thought out and fleshed out. It is much tighter than the structure of the story itself.
Well, see, but the thing with the world building even is that like it feels very real because he puts in those details and stuff. Even though some people have complained about a lack of like descriptions. Which I personally didn't.
That never bothered me once.
It's I think more of the descriptions of what things looked like, because he'll say a thing, but he does not describe.
And I'm fine with that.
And it doesn't bug me because that's kind of how I write. I'm a dialogue, and let's move the plot, bitch.
I'm not even that. I'm.
Katie's the descriptive
but that it doesn't mean that's the way you should write.
Well, and also sometimes there were like little notes that I thought worked well. Like when the genie's doing a thing, he mentions like the stuff it's dredging up from the river, and there's a lot of little details.
Yeah,
there.
and then there's like there's something about the paw and the way the smoke came out too.
Yeah.
So I could see that. Although I will say I could not imagine the genie. I thought it was a giant cat because of the paw thing.
I actually imagined it pretty okay, funnily enough.
The lips really got. I just kept imagining giant wobbling lips.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw it as a beak, and then he was like, "But the lips were more like a beak," and I was like, "No, I'm still picturing a beak."
See, I was picturing like a cat chimera.
That makes sense.
I imagine more just like a smoky shape that happened to have some like visuals.
Yeah, that's true.
Morph in and out.
An Archon from StarCraft, yeah.
And sure,
I
don't know what that is.
I feel like Valerie brings a good point too, is that the dialogue is it does, because the dialogue's very explanatory for the things going on around, and in a way, by the characters reacting to those things, you already get the shape of like the scenery.
And Angry Otter, I'm right next to Mike, so I have to talk slowly, says lack of description didn't bother me either. But it's interesting to note because it works, because there are other books where it just does not work to have this level, and part of it is if you have a lack of description and your dialogue sucks and your narration sucks, you're probably gonna have a bad time. But the narration is pretty decent, the style of it, and the dialogue is really compelling. But anyway, so Geralt also, someone clarified that the Striga took 7 years to mature, so it's been 7 years that it's been harassing people, so they managed to rebuild an entire other castle in 7 years. Hysterical.
So the king wants the Striga stopped and reversed, and he's willing to pay 3,000 for it. And other people in the town are like, okay, but if you kill it,
Yeah,
give you
the
five.
officials who have been living in the aftermath of this are like, just kill it, and they're like, we'll give you 500, and Geralt's like, no, I want 1,000, and they're like 1,000 steep, and he's like, listen, you want me to go in there, and because if the spell can be broken on the curse can be broken on the Striga, he's going to have to spend an entire night until the third cockscrow with the Striga to get the curse removed. And so Geralt's like, yeah, if you want me to do that, even if I'm trying to kill it, that's gonna be rough. And then the king comes and talks to him, and it's one of those moments where you think, because everyone's like, oh, the king will be so mad if you kill his daughter, like, oh man, he's single-minded. And the king's just like, listen, if there's no chance to save her, I need you to just do what you gotta do. I'm not gonna kill you. I'm gonna pretend I'm angry with you, and I'm not gonna pay you 3,000. 3,000 is if you rescue her, but like, if she is suffering and if this is not reversible, or you think that she is going to be like, just do it. And so this book does that thing where it'll set up as a character as a very one-note character, and then it'll end up being more nuanced than you think it's going to be.
Well, so that's what actually I was going to say just then, is that, you know, what really works is that there's a lot of characters that need to do something for the plot.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of getting confined to what that mechanic is for the story's need for it to progress, he instead, I felt like, came literally for, like, I almost felt like he started with the character first and then was like, or maybe, yeah, I don't know. But, like, I just feel like the way the characters are unraveled or whatever, or the layers are picked apart, like, again, the theme keeps coming back that everyone's really, really human.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the thing, is everyone feels like they're doing their own thing, and this is just where their story kind of interconnected with Geralt's, or converged with Geralt's.
I tried to do it quick so it didn't interrupt you that long.
And again, I think the author gets away with a lot, because that makes the world feel real, and it also makes Geralt not feel like a Mary Sue wish fulfillment, because he's not the only person in the world.
Yes. Yeah, so he spent the night with the Striga. The Striga and him, like, tango for a bit, and then he goes to sleep in the Striga's coffin, because the Striga has to stay out of its coffin the whole time. And when he comes out of the, like, he, like, rises from his slumber, and there's a girl on the ground, and he's like, oh, wow, we did it, we did it, guys. And he goes to, like, see if she's okay, but the third cockscrow hasn't happened, so she still has, like, talons and giant teeth, and she swipes at his neck, and then the cockscrow happens, and he wakes up, and he's at the back with the officials, and they're like, wow, you did it! Congratulations, but you're dying! We had to save you! And then next time we see him, he's at Neneka's temple, chilling out.
It's by far the simplest of the stories, because it just has a very simple, like, okay, he went to kill.
Also, this is Sleeping Beauty, just in case nobody caught that.
I didn't, actually.
This is Sleeping Beauty.
Sleeping Beauty.
I mean, that makes sense, but I also wasn't going into the book with the mind of the fairy tale thing, so I didn't pick up on it. And then all of a sudden, when it was like, you know, I knew that there was like a Beauty and the Beast-esque story, so when that came around, I was like, oh, okay. But then when it was like fucking the dwarves, I was like, I hate these little inserts. Like, they feel so dumb.
Yeah, so it's a pretty simple story, but I think it works in the, like, little moments that make you go, like, oh, there's something more interesting here. And you do need just something to set up, like, what Geralt's job is. And it's also, I feel like, the shortest. Or almost one of the shortest.
Yeah, it is.
I'd agree.
Well, it's the beginning of the frame story.
Yes.
Yeah, essentially.
I also would say that this is one of my favorites of them. I really enjoyed this one. I like the tension. I like the action. It's so funny how he uses dancing terms. Yeah. Like, Geralt pirouettes out of the way a lot.
But I like that because it shows the elegance of his movements, and it's kind of like...
The thing is, I don't know if that's translation or on purpose.
It doesn't matter. We can't know.
Yeah, and I would like to think that pirouette is a specific enough action
term,
that and term that it is pirouetted, and he is invoking that, like,
regardless
type of thing. But
the translator, the writer, good job.
Yeah, no, I think so, because also there's sometimes slightly odd verbiage throughout the book. Like, at one point they're talking about ribosomes, and hormones. And so it's like, I'm not sure if that's a word for word translation or if
I'm
it's
assuming
Polish.
it is. It's because when Neneka was talking about global warming, I was like, okay, and that's I thought that was. By the way, that was the one thing I was going to say felt incredibly out of place.
I don't think it's global warming. I think
She
it's
said our
the sun.
ozone is thinning.
Oh, did she say
No,
ozone?
she doesn't say ozone.
No,
What
she
it
The
is,
says-
sun's getting stronger.
yes.
Yeah,
so what
the
she's
deadly
saying,
rays.
what she's saying is that there has been a shift.
Yeah, I know.
From and the elves talk about it too. The elves had like their crops, their ability to live, and now it is shifting over to a climate that is more appropriate for humans and human stuff. And so what she's talking about is that they have their glass over the top, so they're able to have some of the old plants that can no longer survive. And that just happens. Like there are times where it's just hotter and the sun's rays are more intense, and thus we have had different plants over and like it. So I don't think it was global warming. I think it was just saying there is a paradigm shift happening from the old to a new thing. We're going from the fantasy to a different type of
Era.
existence.
By the way, before I don't want to forget, I really loved Geralt's like his little dialogue of his backstory that he was describing to the priestess lady.
Oh yeah, he does it about halfway through.
I really liked that he was like, yeah, I wanted to be a big badass witcher, and I went out and I saw somebody in trouble, and I was like, yeah, because I'm the good guy. And then he went and kills them, and then he was still feared by everyone, and then he was just like, and then I became bitter because no matter what, I was never going to do anything good. And now the one thing he's good at is going out of style.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So some great comments we have. Science Fantastic says, we'll move that. I like Geralt choosing not to kill the Striga. It says a lot about his character that he doesn't accept the bribes. He also just regularly, if there's a creature that is not doing harm, but people want him to kill it, he's not going to do it. And then Kat says... it's a reference, and this is the warming, like the ozone, like the sun stuff we were just talking about. It's a reference to the big bad that Siri is supposed to fix. And then Chris M
You mean the
says,
world changing?
yes, yes, they do mean hormones and global freeze, and they're heading into a new ice age, which happens. And then scroll up.
Oh my god, really? See, I don't know any of this because I haven't actually like
that.
Other thing with
Yes.
that.
And so this is in the comments of the dancing. So Chris M says, "Oh, that thing with the dancing moves is supposed to convey the unique way the Witchers fight."
Yeah. They're like the jujitsus of,
Jiu-jitsus.
yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
But yeah, no, so yeah, I think this is a solid story. Do we want to talk about the boob thing now or later?
wait, I thought we were going story by story.
We are, but there is a boob thing here, and then there's gonna be more boob stuff
Which
later.
story are we on again?
We just finished the Striga
The
one.
Striga
Yeah,
one,
but where's the boob thing?
it describes her chest when she's a Striga.
I don't even remember that.
So what happens is that as she's turning back from a Striga into a human, there is a mention that she has boobs.
I didn't think that was that was like more descriptor in nature.
Yeah, a
'Cause
lot of
it's a
people
child.
on the Discord had a lot of problems with it, but I'm gonna be honest. To me, it just felt European.
Yeah,
Like
that's all.
it's not really described sexually. To
It's
me,
not
it was
like
just
Renfried's or Yennefer's where it's like, oh, he could see the supple, the
right.
supple
Yeah, it was
whatever.
just like, and she had like conical breasts.
I
Yeah.
think the point that they made, because I read someone this earlier today that they made, was that it just didn't need to be there, and it's the kind of like when you have
Why not?
dogs.
Maybe I want to describe her breasts.
Well, but I mean, I think they're saying in terms of like
what does it add to the
what
story
does it add
or
to
the
the
description
story?
of the Striga?
And she's also underage, so
I think, well, okay, so for me personally, I wouldn't say it necessarily adds a specific element, but maybe I want a specific image in your brain. And I want you, you might argue, oh, what, picture a 14-year-old naked? But, like, that's not the point. The point is that she was naked as a Striga, and now he's going to describe her in her raw state. I see no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Now, if there is a different motivation behind that, well, then that is. But I think that in and of itself...
yeah. To me, it just did not read as sexual. It just read as a thing.
and a lot of them. So the person, I can't remember whose comment it was, mentioned that it wasn't sexual. It just wasn't adding anything and could easily have been taken out without affecting the rest of the story
sure,
at
maybe.
all.
Yeah.
And so, what is the like from a?
But so could a lot of things in stories.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not unsympathetic to people who
Yeah.
found it weird, but I just myself was
Yeah.
like, I think that's just a European thing where sometimes they describe bodies more.
Yeah.
In general, this book it feels more like just an adult wrote it without thinking about like what somebody else is necessarily going to.
Well, Americans in general and many other, like, I think it depends on the culture. The world is big, but like there is a very large conservative population that finds it very problematic just to even be naked.
Yeah, no, it's true. And the thing is, within the confines of that culture, then describing somebody's boob becomes weird because
Yeah,
it's,
exactly.
but like in the
So-
other one, I just did it's so in passing.
Yeah.
Um,
This one is, and I would say isn't one of those things. Now, Kat makes a very valid point.
Yeah, I love that.
I think we just have to admit that every fantasy writer is
Yes.
horny, and like
That's correct.
I think the only
Maria,
one who wasn't,
yes.
I
Will,
think
yes.
the only one who wasn't was Tolkien.
he was horny for words, and he put in a lot.
He was horny for words, and
I think he just wanted to prove his.
But I didn't read this as horny.
yeah, no, and so the comments I read about it didn't read it as horny. It was just within the context of boobs being mentioned. This is one that didn't need to be there.
I argue all the boobs.
Yeah, but anyway, so we'll talk about that more than as we go. But I think that's it for that story.
Yes, it goes to him with Nenica and that other what's her name?
I
The
can't
lady
think of
that
it.
can't speak.
Yeah.
I'm
The unspoken
Yona?
priestess.
Yeah, in the frame story, the head priestess of where he's
Una?
being healed at is like, you should go on a spirit journey to see the future, and he's like,
Iola?
no, and that lasts for like half the book.
Is that what that says? Iola?
Iola, yeah.
Yeah. And he has this one priestess that he has slept with, but she doesn't speak, and Geralt didn't even notice she was mute, which like
Well, it's because she thought he pictured her as Yennefer as a thing, because that's like the whole thing. And then he wakes up and it's not her. But I also just thought it was like, I didn't like their sexual relationship at all.
I didn't either. I didn't want it here. I don't.
It was weird.
But this is why it added nothing.
Yeah, see that
Adds
could be removed because
Yes.
I feel like it is a detriment.
it adds nothing. It doesn't.
But it's not about it not adding anything. It's a detriment, in my opinion. Because it's like prior to that, he has told himself Yennefer's the only one for him. So for that to have happened, it seems disingenuous. Unless it's
we don't know that as the reader.
Well, not at the beginning, but that's what I mean. It's not consistent with his character where it should be.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel very him, and also she doesn't talk, so it doesn't
Feels
even
like-
really feel like
And
it's
also,
happening.
he's so observant with so much stuff. So for him to have a whole
Well,
night
he was
with
ill,
someone,
I guess.
I know, but then why are we having sex with an ill person?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? If he's too ill to notice that the woman he was sleeping with
No,
took
no,
a
so-
vow of silence.
No, this is where the sexism comes. This is where the horny man sexism comes in. It's because it's like, I'm a hurt man, and I need the pussy.
let me
That was very crude. of
heal
me.
you with my
I
body.
need,
Yeah.
need your delicious womanhood.
Oh, gross. God, somehow
heal
you
me.
made it worse.
You're welcome.
I suppose that's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like such a castaway moment. Like
But again,
That's why it feels
I
like
think it's one of the ways that the book is kind of messy, and
Yeah.
that it just
Yeah.
doesn't quite have a consistent tone in that regard.
and it doesn't feel like it matches everything else we've seen and what we see afterwards, and it's just this like why did this happen? Who set this up? Did he like come on to her? Did she come on to? Was he lying there sick? Like
Yeah, no, the way I pictured it, although I could have missed something, is that Nenica had sent her to him to go sleep with him to heal his wounded man spirit.
I don't like that.
I don't either. I think it's dumb.
Yes, I don't think that should have been there.
I
Although, why would
don't.
Nenica ever send
I
her
think-
prized pupil person in there to just randomly...
I think that it's okay for adults to have consensual relationships.
Yeah. And it is presented as consenting, as like she also wanted to be, but again, it adds nothing. I don't like it in this point in the story.
Yeah, I didn't really feel like it added a lot. Again, it's one of those things I almost didn't remember.
He and Yennefer were on a break.
Yeah. Because that's so
Imagine
funny.
in Ross's voice. This is a reference. For
We were
our-
on a break. That's a terrible Ross.
That was
It's
really
actually
horrible.
not
But
bad.
you're welcome.
It's not
And
bad.
then Angry Otter said, scroll up.
They're always on
No.
the break.
Yeah, yes, that, but scroll up. The first one here.
What's it say?
So, oh, that's a trend with Sapkowski. Sex with the ill or dying people. Everyone has their kink, I guess. And listen, I've seen that. Like, you see it sometimes
Well, we
in
should-
fantasy.
Yeah, we should say that. I mean, we're coming at this basically only from having read this book. We haven't read any of the others. So, like, I don't know, maybe he does something really gross in a later book. But
That,
for right
but
now,
that,
we're
we
just...
can't speak on that.
Yeah, for right now, we're just speaking on this and, like,
And I
a
just-
little bit of the series we
It's-
watched.
I think you could have easily taken this out and it wouldn't have changed nothing.
Okay, story 2.
Story 2 is the Nevine
Mhm.
Nevine story. Okay, so this is the Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it is
I think one of the cleaner stories, in my opinion. Well, not cleaner, but
it
like
has a weirdly emotional core to
Yeah.
it. Like,
I feel like he wrote like there is a certain just nostalgic tragedy.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story because, again, this is a place where you realize that, like, the author can really bring out emotion through what you wouldn't expect, or in ways you wouldn't expect, and especially from characters who are not super emotional. almost.
Novellin.
Okay, so I had half of it. But and that's entirely it, because like in the first half of the story, you don't think Novellin is going to be a tragic character or someone that you emotionally feel for that much.
Yeah.
And the book ends up like kind of getting you there.
Also, Novellin is such a fascinating character, honestly. Like the fact that his origin stories and being, first of all, the heir to like a thieves guild, basically, but like a rich one, so they have a really nice manor where they go hunting at their hunting lodge and stuff. And then he gets bullied by like the gang to go rape a priestess, but it's not just any priestess, it's like a dark witch priestess. And then he gets cursed, which is super interesting. And then they run away, and now he has like these really cool powers, but he's also like, you know, a monster. And then the story of all the beauties coming through and how that happened, it makes so much sense for, like, he's like I can't say that. He's like the nerdy dude that, like,
Yeah.
the red pill guy.
He's
Yeah, he's a
the
little bit
guy.
like that.
He feels like the guy who's always fumbling his papers at the start of like a
Yeah.
lot of evil, like the comic book character that's like comes in and then like becomes like an evil villain by the end of it, but he doesn't. He doesn't go that way.
Right.
And so basically, our boy Geralt is wandering through the woods, and he stumbles upon a dead woman with a blue rose pinned to her shirt, and a man who he assumes is her father, and she has like a bite on her neck, and they've obviously been attacked by something, and there are also some wolves like in the area, and he's like, that's not a wolf bite, what is that? And as he walks a little bit farther, he sees a woman standing and just staring at him, like, and he's like,
No, I really liked the description of this because actually, if I remember correctly, he's actually nearing to the estate.
yeah.
And he sees a young woman. And by young woman, she's described as being short and childlike in nature, like big eyes, dark hair, and she looks innocent. So with all of that combined, I was picturing just a very youthful looking woman, or like literally 16 type of looking vibe. But she's described in like such an alien way. I don't know why it works.
It's a very fey description.
Yeah.
Like there's almost something insect like with
Yes.
the way he describes her. So I didn't get child. I got big-eyed insect.
I mean, I did too, but what I meant was, I imagined like a small thing.
And so it's very, and he sees this woman, and then he continues on his way, and he comes up to a giant manor. There's roses. He's like, oh, these are the blue roses I saw, because he was like, blue roses? Who the fuck has blue roses? Like,
Yeah.
this isn't a thing. And then he sees this bush of blue roses, and he's like, this must have been where it's from. And then a beast comes out of the castle and is like, get the fuck away.
I
from
really
my
loved his
roses."
intro though, because he was just like, blah, 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 blah. He's like Calcifer.
Yeah, it's very funny because it's a very like
Performative.
yeah. The Beast comes out and then the Beast is actually just kind of a grumpy dude who wants
Yeah.
to be left alone.
And so the Beast is just all pissy, and then eventually he's like, "Oh, I guess I haven't had a guest in a while. You can come in." And then you're like, "Okay." And Geralt's like, "Sure, I will come in with you." And so he goes in. The guy introduces himself as Nivellen. He's like, "Oh, because Geralt's like, "Do you have servants here?" And he's like, "No, just make the castle do whatever I want." He can be like, "Castle, turn on the lights. Castle, make me a banquet. Castle, more wine." And it all.
Why did you become like the
don't
Russian bat from Anastasia?
I don't know. I can't again. And if you ask me
It's
to do
gotta
it again
let-
now,
Yeah.
it just happens naturally. That's
It's
what
got to
happens.
flow. And this is one of the places where, again, the world building feels more fanciful than it
Yes.
will later.
Yeah.
But this is, again, almost like when he was just writing these without realizing they were going to be a connected world.
Part of a bigger story. And basically, Nivellen tells him his whole story, which Katie kind of already went over the first part. Which is, he, young, nerdy, ugly boy, because he literally shows Geralt a photo of him, and he's like, look at that. That guy's so... Nobody was going for that guy. And then he basically tells Geralt the story of why he no longer wants to turn back into a man, and he's given up on that.
Because he got all the ladies.
Yeah, so his first idea for how to potentially break the curse is going back on some fairy tales, which is, love can undo curses. So he one day a man stumbles upon his house and he's like, "Give me your daughter," and the guy's like, "My daughter's 8."
And he's like,
and he's
"Oops."
like, "Oh God, no, that won't work." But he gives the guy a bunch of gold. And then other people start coming because they were like, "Man, this guy got a bunch of gold," and the guy just asked for his daughter.
I do like how he's like, I have no use for this. Just take it.
He's like, I can make food. I can do all of my needs are met. Have it. And so then another guy comes and is like, "I have a daughter. She's like 20." And Nivellen's like, "Here you go, take gold. Let me live with your daughter for a year." The daughter comes and he describes the process of, at first she's scared and terrified. And then slowly they get to know each other. And at first she feels bad for him. And then it turns to friendship. And then eventually they get drunk and bored one night. And I think the first girl just comes in and out without anything happening.
Yeah.
But the second girl, they get drunk one night and a little...
He rides him naked to scare off visitors, like a wild woman.
Yeah, like they start playing pranks on other people that come, and so he'll like gallop out, and she'll be on his back naked, like
Which is
it's really funny.
yeah. And so they develop a friendship, but then they end up sleeping with each other. And then, like, from that point on, like, the girls will come in, they'll be scared, then they'll feel bad for him, and then they'll become friends, and then they'll sleep with him. And he gets to a point where he's like, these women being willing to sleep with me isn't breaking my curse. And, like, I like them. They're cool ladies. And he's like, but also, I didn't get no female attention when I was a normal nerdy boy and ugly. So, I'm stronger. The castle does everything I want.
I never get sick.
I'm lonely sometimes, but I like when I can get ladies to come by anytime I want. But he also just, like, has chosen at this point a bit of solitude. And he's kind of just resigned and okay with his life. And Geralt's like, "You sure about that, buddy?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm good." And then Geralt's like, "You're not the only person that lives here, are you?" And he's like, "God damn it, you found
Rude.
me out. You found me out." And he's like, "Yeah, there's someone else here." And he's like, "Is she being forced?" And he was like, "No, this is a different situation. This one, I really love her, and she loves me." And Geralt's like, "Well, you do you, Pikachu." And then he's like, "I'm leaving." He leaves the next morning, and he's like, "Goodbye." And he goes out. And he also tells Nivellen, "I think she's a Rusalka." And Nivellen's like, "Oh, that makes sense. She does sometimes attack people." And Geralt leaves, and why does he come back? He turns around and he comes back to the...
He sees something dead, I think, or...
Yeah, he's going out with his with Roach, and they're, like, going around, and they see the... Yeah. And then they see, I think it's the feeding or something like that, or I don't remember what it is, but there's evidence, and then he's like, "Oh, it's something on a tree or something."
Yeah, it was something like that.
And Roach, you're right. Roach gets very scared.
And he knew it the whole time. Like, he was like, you knew it the whole time, but I didn't realize it, and then he goes back.
Yes. And so he ends up going back, and the Rusalka, it's not a Rusalka, the girl is there waiting for him. And she doesn't speak. But
I love this.
like
He tries
Yeah.
to guess. He's like, okay, if you're not a Rusako, then you're a da da da. And then she just slowly, like,
as
and
he
then
gets closer,
she smiles, and it's needle-like teeth.
and basically she's a specific type of vampire that can turn into a giant fucking bat. And so they start battling, and she's too fast. Like
I thought that was the Striga.
No, this isn't the Striga.
What is it called? What is she called? It's gonna
I don't remember. There's a specific term.
It's gonna really bother me because
I
like
think it started with a B. If anyone remembers what...
Yeah, I was going to say, they'll put
for
it
the
in.
love of God, just say it.
Of the 17 people here, one of you should
That's
remember.
actually pretty decent.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I was gonna say for...
For one of our...
Bruja.
I knew it was a B.
Which, by the way, is just witch in
Bruxa.
Spanish, but...
Yeah.
Abruxa.
Yeah, Abruxa.
Abruxa is a different thing, yeah.
So it's a Abruxa, and this is the fight Geralt was not going to win.
Because apparently they're OP.
And they're just super fast. He was not, and it's one of those moments where I'm like, okay, good. I like that in the first story, Geralt, like, is a boss-ass bitch and he does the stuff, but here, he's getting his ass absolutely handed to him. He barely touches her. At one point, she's got, like, a little nick on her shoulder, and that's the best he's done. And
it's cool to see something so powerful, and it's, like, rare. It's kind of, like, almost like this inference that this type of creature is not commonly seen. Mm-hmm. So it's like he came across a rare one, and then he's like,
rare elite enemy. So the name is in purple.
So yeah, exactly. I was gonna be like, so he hasn't leveled up enough.
Yeah,
he wasn't there yet. But anyway, and so he's about to get like fucked up.
Yeah, he's not gonna make it.
And then Novellin comes out, and he's got a giant like
pole arm.
Like I don't think it's an actual staff. In my head, I imagined it as a sharpened curtain rod. You know,
I
don't
that's
know
accurate.
why.
Yeah,
I didn't feel like, and he might have come out with an actual spear, but it just felt like he had this a stake, like a giant long stake, and he was like, oh god, I gotta save this dude because my girl's about to kill her. And he comes out, and he ends up like, and he's crying her name, and she won't like back off Geralt, and he ends up like stabbing her, and then like, but it just like enters her, and then like she looks at him, and she starts pulling herself farther down.
Oh, I love that. In the
stick.
I'm not gonna lie, in the show they did a good job of that.
Oh, that one I didn't watch.
That's
a
really
season
good
2,
scene.
yeah.
Season 2.
That's the first episode.
That's actually a very accurate. That entire episode was completely different because of Ciri, but
also the implication was that he had known Novellin from before, and he knew Novellin when he was a human, and Novellin lied about what he did. He didn't say that he had raped the priestess, and he found it out. So they also, one thing I will say they did there is that the Bruxa had a very specific presence in the episode that was kind of creepy, and you're like, what is this? What is in this house with him? And I would have liked that. Yeah. Like, because it added this like haunted house element to it that was really nice. But anyway, so this scene, and like Novellin's upset, and he's like trying to like get, and she's like,
he broke the scaffolding.
Yeah, it's pretty much
pretty sick. Yeah. And
she's like, no, I love you.
Yeah, and then and then she dies, and then Novellin turns into a really handsome dude. Because I guess the breaking of the curse also fixed, or maybe that's what he would have like. Maybe puberty hits hard, my guys. Blow ups be for real.
Hey, at least he's handsome, and he probably has some wealth. Look, he's not in a bad place.
No, and this is the part that, like, it hit really hard when I was reading it. He's like, why did this happen? And Gerald's like, it's true love. True love is what actually did break you. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Because the other thing we didn't mention is she'd been eating people, like, at the beginning of the story. And
that girl with the blue rose on her thing, that was, with the bite mark, that was this.
And so I thought it was just kind of, like, a very interesting idea. I don't know that it necessarily comes together to say anything like substantive about like jealousy and love, but it is one of these things where like the story is constantly trying to take the Beauty and the Beast myth and like make it like, oh, de-romanticize it or demystify it, and this is like one of the aspects of that, which is that her love was not a healthy love.
Yeah, but it was true, but also that like it doesn't have to be the like love of a pure maiden, you know?
Yeah.
It's that this monster that like true love is not like just pretty. It can be this dark, terrible thing because he knew Nivellen knew that she was killing people, but he loved her, so he couldn't do until he was literally confronted with it, do anything about it. And so I liked, and I also liked. We mentioned before that Nivellen was like, "I keep sleeping with all these women and nobody." And so the idea that like he was equating sex and sex being like if you're willing to have sex with me when I'm a monster, and what he doesn't know is there's a lot of monster boyfriend trash girls out there. Like, buddy, like you don't need love.
Well, and the other thing is they're very well to do afterwards because
Yes.
they're like, oh, you know, we got Baz, we got to chill there.
Yeah.
He leaves them with a little something. So like, yeah, no.
He shows them a good time, lots of wine,
Like
lots of food.
they come with calluses, they leave with baby soft hands. But anyway, and then this love that is much less healthy, like the relationship he had with those other girls, like they came, they knew what they were getting into, like, and then this thing that was just so much sadder and like had to end in death, but ended up curing his curse because it was true love as much as it was real.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I
always
really liked
pictured
this
her
story.
like a stray cat. She kind of acted like a feral cat.
Yeah, that's kind of how I did
And
too.
that's how I felt. Like when I watched the episode of the show, it also felt that way, and it really gave me the vibe that he found a stray cat that was like really like. It's kind of like what do you make fun of me? The doe-eyed thing.
Oh,
What's it called again?
Oh, the like injured.
deer in the head. Oh, injured deer. Is
Yeah,
what I call it.
the and then you want to take care of it.
So that's what I got from like I got like this whole look at this really beautiful stray cat that's like kind of cute when it doesn't scratch me, and that was the love.
I
Which is
also
sad.
the one thing that you mentioned with the show is that it just felt like she perched in there, and I like the idea of Novell just coming home one night and like there's a thing living in his attic, and he's like, "The fuck is this?" And then
We got someone leaving for a family barbecue. You
Well,
fucking traitor.
someone
No,
doesn't have
Quill
their
with no A.
priorities
Have a
correct.
lovely barbecue. I hope it's delicious food. Sometimes you have family barbecue and the food isn't good, and you're like, man.
Wow, I
wish this
just
was better."
wasted all these calories and now this
So I
barbecue.
hope the
Food was
food
good.
is absolutely delicious and you have a good time.
True story. I always get bagels for everyone because I'm very gracious when I come here. And they're good. And then Maria got here and was like, "Oh, what can I put on here? We put some little meat. Do you have some lemon? Do you have like?" She had to Greek it up for no reason.
What do you mean?
So
So
I had lox on a bagel with
some
capers
capers
and
and
red onion, which I would say is definitely not Greek.
It
and
had, like,
has
a whole
cultural
thing.
connotation.
there's a level of laziness in this line of people here. We have Will, who's the person who's at the lowest of the totem
He'll
pole.
just eat
who
a
will-
bagel.
He'll just eat
Plain.
the bagel, go.
Oh, no plate.
Which I also will do. So
Sesame
I'm not.
seeds.
No, I had the Asiago, so the sesame seeds weren't everywhere.
Yeah. There were still seeds everywhere. So that's Will, and I'm just about there with him, but I'll level it up with a little bit of butter. And then you've got Maria, which jumps like
Well,
several
so
levels.
first off, I can't have a breakfast that doesn't have protein. If I do, I'm gonna get a headache, and I will like literally turn into a grumpy person by 11
Again,
o'clock.
Maria's the
So-
most functional as well.
You know, this is actually probably a good time to chill. How do we afford food?
Bagels.
Not this. That is not how we afford food.
Well, I bought it, so you know, and we also said earlier that this is a book live stream. But what does that mean, Maria?
Do you like how Katie just
Disappeared.
from the frame so we don't have to shame her? So we have a Patreon. Join it. It's a good time. We have 3 tiers. Our first tier is our normal patrons. You get to be part of the Discord. They're a groovy group of people. We got writers. We got readers. We got game players. We got YouTube watchers,
Gamers.
obviously.
And so for level 2, we have the book club. That's what we're doing here. 1/4 of the books we read each year are up to you guys. You guys get to nominate books you want. I'll pick 3 that I think there's a consensus on or people would like or a range. Then you guys vote on them, and we have to read them. That was this one. I'm very happy. Sometimes the books are good. Other times they're not. But in this case, I was very happy to read something that was like a little bit different than our normal.
Yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and also we have mid-month ones, which are just like books that I pick that I think could educate the masses. Those
Not always. A Million to One was one of your picks.
lately I've been trying to do that.
A Million to One.
I'm sorry, Girl Squad, Titanic,
A Million to One, William.
Girl Squad.
You could have read the first chapter.
Here's the problem. I often want to try to read, YA books or books by female authors, and that's never a good idea.
Listen, House of the Scorpion was an excellent
No,
choice.
I'm kidding. I am like trying to steer the channel away from YA and romance.
Yeah, and we are. It's funny. We've had a nice string of books that we've enjoyed lately, which means it's gonna do terrible. People are gonna not watch them and be like, "Man, you guys never like good. You never read books you like. You only read bad books."
No, we have like 4 of them in a row that are just gonna be like some mix of obscure sci-fi or
starting with Slewfoot.
Which we didn't even love that much. It was like just kind of.
But there was that other one, the Catherine Arden one, the Something Hands of Ghosts.
The Warm Hands of Ghosts.
Warm Hands of Ghosts.
And then, Katie, why don't you sell them on the 3rd tier while I go get something to drink?
The 3rd tier is the Parasocial Darlings tier, where you
I gotta find it.
get to do things.
The critique stream, I already said that.
3rd tier, you gain access to critique streams, which is me and Katie looking at the prose and how to write those well. We did the Soldier's Tale last time, looking at battle scenes. That was pretty cool. You also get access to the live streams of KFC, Katie's Fiction Corner.
Fiction Corner.
Where she'll look over.
Can you do that? You a little closer, do that little jingle.
Things happen organically.
No, Katie's Fiction Corner.
No, we're finishing.
Oh, God damn it.
And that's where she like critiques somebody's writing or brainstorms ideas with them, and it's a pretty good time. So join and support independent journalism.
And if you can't, you can also. Why do you make this go down more so it's out of the frame again? You can also like and subscribe and comment. Comments do a lot for the algorithm, especially if this is a book that we liked or that isn't doing well. If you comment, it does a ton of good for us as a channel. So if you happen to watch one of the books, one of the episodes where we like something and it's not getting a lot of just, I don't know, comment fish.
Hit the like.
Hit the like, comment fish. If you know, you know. Anyway. Back to the story.
Okay, story 3. Renfrey's story is Snow White, but like it's really
barely Snow White.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's real tangential. It's really not integrated into the story much. Witcher Geralt goes to see this wizard that he really doesn't like, and the wizard is in a tower.
Also, I just want to talk about the Alderman, because he was a cool character.
Yeah, he was.
Geralt comes to this town, and he's like, "Can I stay with you, Alderman?" Or the Alderman's like, "You can stay with me," and Geralt's like, "Is your wife going to be okay with that?" And she was like, he's like, "As long as you don't, like, throw any daggers at rats during dinner, I think we'll be okay." And so there's this sense that Geralt is this very human character. He's made friends. He's made this is the start of his his reputation kind of going down the toilet. That's the point of this story, and how he becomes the Butcher of Blaviken. So he visits Blaviken. He's hanging out with friends. He goes to Stregobor to try, and he doesn't know it's Stregobor. He thinks it's a different wizard, to sell this thing that he caught on his way in to see if like he can make any money off of doing this thing. And Stregobor's like, "Geralt, nice to see you. Come in,
grab a glass of wine."
And Geralt's like, "Yo, the last time we saw each other, you literally voted against me and got me in trouble, you son of a bitch." And Stregobor's like, "There's such thing." And basically, Stregobor is stuck in this tower that he's constructed for himself.
No, it was already there.
It was already there, but he's magicked it. He's created the things, and he's stuck there because a terrible, awful be chasing him. And he's like, "Yo, my buddy Geralt, you need to help me. This terrible, awful that is chasing me, I will have to be stuck here forever because it has found me. So you need to help me out." And Geralt's like, "What do you mean?" Like, immediately
Geralt is so done with him. It's really
he is super skeptical. He's like, "Fuck wizards. Fuck you, Stregobor, but I'm also like a witcher, so tell me what it is." And basically, a bunch of wizards believe in that after a eclipse, that a bunch of girls that were born after it were possessed by a demon to help the rebirth of the demon Lilith. And that these girls are monsters and mayhem and they cause problems, and they've been looking for some of them. And like they found one apparently that had like green moss or red moss inside instead of like, I don't know, organ.
Well, and he just very casually is like, yeah, no, we had to vivisect.
Yeah, we vivisected the one. And you're like, oh, so he's like, there are these terrible women. They cause mayhem and plague and famine, and they take over, and they're just terrible. And I found this one, and she was a child, and
we fucking killed her.
Yeah, her mother ended up, there was her stepmom, her evil stepmom, was like, let's get rid of her. I don't like her. She kills birds and tortures lizards. And so they created a plot to try get rid of her, but she escaped and then has caused hell ever since, and then started hunting Striga down. And she's like taken in this one prince and his kingdom. She had like 7 dwarves at one point, and they were thieves, and she's a thug.
She kind of comes off as like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like I can think of references that are like not helpful. But like that, no, but there's like an archetype for like, she's like the badass female swordswoman. Like there's just like several characters that come to mind, but that's not.
She's like the queen bandit, like the
lady,
yeah.
There you go. That works. The bandit queen or whatever. She's got that vibe, and she's supposed to be super skilled, and because of her weird mutations and there are indeed mutations, I guess. She's like healthier, magic doesn't work on her after a while and stuff. So she is special in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's left ambiguous how much of there is a person there are.
Or versus she's just a magical human, because there are magical humans that are sorcerers and wizards. But anyway, and he's like, she's gonna get me, and you have to, and he's like, Geralt's like, I think you confused me with a mercenary. I don't kill people. She's not a person, she's a monster. And Geralt has no time for any of this girls born after eclipses be demons shit. He was like, that guy was a creep. Y'all are a creep. I don't like this. Fuck you, Stregobor. And Stregobor's like, it's the lesser evil. That's what the story is called. It's the lesser evil, Geralt. You're gonna have to make a choice. And Geralt's like, nope. And he fucks on out. And he talks to, like, him and the alderman have some stuff, but then he stumbles upon, or he finds the crew that Renfri has brought in. Stregobor called Renfri the Shrike, because apparently there was a stage where she was just spearing people on poles, as shrikes be doing. And Shrike's the bird, not Hyperion the Shrike, though same thing. But anyway, and he ends up trying to avoid the confrontation because Stregobor was like, listen, she's going to come try and attack me, and there's going to be bloodshed. And so Geralt tries to confront her because she's at, her and her crew are at a tavern, and he comes in and he's like, I'd like to talk to the Shrike. And her thugs are like, oh, you want to go, buddy? And Geralt's like, no, I don't. I'm just trying to do something here. And then Renfri comes back and she's like, boys, calm down. She literally does that. Like let's calm down, everyone. Like, her clothing is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. I can't believe how much her skirt gets used in a fight. Her asymmetrical skirt.
Okay, so I actually liked that because she used it as a shield.
I mean, I like it too, but for it to be long enough for her to throw in someone's face would mean it was tangling in her legs all the time.
Yes, I know.
Like, it's just a weird choice.
Unless she layered, you know what I mean?
It could be like a secret weapon.
Oh, someone mentioned something that is really good if you get Jenny.
Yeah.
The Rapunzel reference.
Yeah. So, Rapunzel reference in the story too. They put some of these girls in towers. Also, Stregobor complaining about the princes going to save the girls from the towers. Yeah, they keep trying to isolate the girls instead of killing them, and then people keep taking them out, and then the princes get all like into the girls, and like they become queens, and thus spreading their evilness. Like, if this was as bad as Stregobor said, I feel like the world would be in absolute chaos. Like,
this is one of the places where you're like, okay, the world building is still awfully like this feels much more of like almost a satire of fantasy than a realistic fantasy setting that the books will then be more like.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is one of those early points. And she's like, oh, okay, let's talk Witcher. She's very femme fatale.
Yeah.
Very, very femme fatale.
Yeah, I really liked her.
I liked her. I would have liked if it was a little less femme fatale and
Well, she
more-
was a caricature of herself, I felt like, more than any other character.
Yeah, she felt a lot like a trope.
Yes, she's the tropiest, and the thing is, she shouldn't be because like we actually get a really emotional moment from her, and I wish she felt less tropey and more organic to her story. But like, there's a sassy confidence that, given the way her life has gone down, I don't buy. I don't buy it.
I think it could be seen as like a shield, a
Or
persona
a
she
coping,
puts on.
yeah, and that would work if we saw it break at any point, but it doesn't.
We see it break enough for me personally when she's giving her eight. There's a very specific moment where Geralt notices and she broke, and then there's something happened. And it describes
No, she's having a prophecy. She doesn't remember what's happened. She's having a prophecy.
No, not that. It's when she's talking about all the pain and hurt and suffering she's gone through. And when that happens, there's it's one line. And it's like, basically he sees past the mask for a second type of vibe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it literally, she put the mask back on, and then it continues on.
Yeah.
So you do get that enough for the short story.
Yeah, and I think it's also one of these things where it's like he kind of wanted to write a fun character to an extent. In terms of like it's a little broad, but
Yes.
I liked her as a character, but also I kind of like femme fatale
Yes,
characters.
you like
and
hot bitchy women, and Renfrey is nothing if not that.
just wait till we get to Yennefer.
Yeah, no. Anyway, so and basically Renfrey, like they have this first interaction. She fucks off, but she ends up cornering Geralt at a later point, being and kind of gives her side of it, which is basically like, you're gonna have to choose this guy. They tried to have me murdered. They tried to poison me with an apple. I literally got saved by they don't call them dwarves.
Midgets?
Gnome.
Yeah,
No.
gnomes.
Yeah, no.
And and then like I made a life for myself, and I was the one being hunted until I started doing the hunting, and now suddenly I'm and because he's like, can you just not do this? Like, because she's like, you have a choice, and he's like, no, you have a choice too, because she goes, there's only two people that can keep bloodshed from happening. Stregobor by just giving himself up, and Geralt goes, only a madman would do that. That's not going to happen. And then she goes, or you, by going in, because Stregobor trusts you, going in and you just killing him, and then we'll be golden, or getting him so I can kill him. And he was like, or you, by just choosing not to do this. And she's like, no, I suppose I could, but I don't want to. Like, this is my path. I am what I am. I'm going to do this thing. And there is very much this sense of, she doesn't know completely what she is, but she just knows she is who she is, and that, like, she's lived her life. She's had this experience. And you very much get the sense that these two are both each other's monsters to such an extent that they cannot see outside of their own experience of what has happened in this situation. And you feel like you don't feel bad for Stregobor. Like, he inserted himself into a situation he didn't need to be in, and now he has to pay for it. But you do feel bad for Renfrey, because she was a child when all of this was like it happened and thrust upon her, and things were kind of thrown her way.
And like also a lot of assault stuff. Happened.
Yes, the assault stuff indeed did happen. And basically at the end of the night, she's just like, no, we'll just leave. Don't worry about it. We're just gonna leave. And then later at breakfast, the next morning at breakfast, Geralt's like, nothing's gonna happen. She said her and her crew are gonna leave. And the alderman's like, that's such good news. And then the alderman's like, da 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 da. And this one thing, and Geralt's like, wait, hold up, what was that story you're talking about? And the alderman tells a story about how one of the half-elves who was part of Renfrey's crew had been part of a different crew where he got captured, and to get him out of prison, the gang took a bunch of hostages and just kept killing people one by one until the prince of the area was forced to release the prisoners to keep people from dying. And the alderman's like, he should never have given in to them. It sets a bad precedent. And it was the name of the town, Ultimatum. And Geralt's like, oh, fuck. That's exactly what she's going to do. She's going to threaten Stregobor with just killing lots of people. And the funny thing is, Stregobor doesn't give a shit. It wouldn't have worked anyway. He would have absolutely just let it. But Geralt doesn't know that, and he wants to prevent a massacre. And he's like, I gotta go to the market. And his alderman friend is like, how about we don't? Like, it's market day. Let's be calm. Let's not. And then Geralt's like, no, you don't want this happening in the middle of your market day. I've got to go. And the alderman's like, please don't kill anybody.
It's kind of funny.
And Geralt goes, and all the gang members are there.
I feel like you could have taken him down without killing him, don't you think?
Yes, I think he could have just a lot of head thwacking.
I don't know. It's hard to tell. His skill is a little, like, dependent on what he's prepared to do or not prepared to do.
It's kind of weird because I felt like there was... I don't know if there was another scene.
You're right, actually, because
there another scene where he had just knocked people out?
Yeah, in the Last Wish with the Yennefer stuff, he's able to.
Yeah.
What happens in the Last Wish doesn't really make sense with what happens here.
Yeah.
Because it's a very similar situation, but everybody seems much more accepting.
So I think it would make sense if the timeline was clearer, because the idea is this happens before Last Wish, and so perhaps he has learned from his errors,
and now he can handle the situation better.
And not just that, but he's like, let's not choose blood first. You know, perhaps he was a younger Witcher at the time.
I mean, that's fine too, but it also just seemed he was characterized as somebody who was trying desperately to avoid bloodshed, and it's weird that he just did that.
He just went in. Yeah, no, it's true.
So
I don't think Renfried was going to start killing people. I know she threatened it, but was she going to do it?
I think if it would have worked, but I think what she came in and said after he'd already started killing people was Striga wouldn't have come out anyway, so killing people would have been worthless, so it wouldn't have happened. And he's like, fuck, you know, like the choice. Yeah. But he makes his choice. He starts fighting the guys and killing them, and everybody's standing there. And then Renfrey comes, and he's like, we don't have to do this. We can just end this here. And she's like, no, you made your choice. I get to make my choice. I'm angry. I'm upset.
You killed all my band of people.
And she's like, we're gonna tango. And it's in this moment you see that she has made a choice for her life.
Mm-hmm.
And made it specific, and she's using Geralt to get that end. Like, she cannot get Stregobor out of his tower. This quest of hers is never going to end. And so she fights Geralt to her death. And it's
really sad. And it's so sad, it's because, like, it even ends on the note where she's like, as she's dying, because, you know, the night prior they had made love. And, ew. So they made sweet love the night before. So there's like this one moment where as she's dying...
Not necessary, but... Okay.
It's fine. Anyway, and so they, as she's dying, she's like, hold me, Geralt. And it kind of seems very genuine. But of course you know that that's kind of like, and he just stays away and watches as the life leaves her eyes. And as she dies, her hand lets go of a dagger. And it's like
that shit hidden that she was gonna come out with. Like,
oh yeah.
Like you get the sense
he knew the whole time, and it's just like this. It's just too bad. It's like, wow, what a waste.
What I liked about Renfrey is that she's not a perfect victim. In that, like, there's that kind of like stereotype of like, okay, does Katie have glitter on her face?
She has glitter on her face.
Yeah, she does.
Go closer, Katie. Let them appreciate.
Oh yes.
Continue.
In terms of, like, there's that, you know, the trope of, like, someone has to be a perfect victim for them to have, for us to have sympathy for them. And, like, as soon as, like, you know, you want to start impugning a victim or getting, you start saying bad things about their character or whatever. And Renfrey very much is not a perfect victim. She's not really a good person. And I love that in the end, like, she was that spiteful, and I don't know, there's like a strength to that that I respect.
She made a choice for herself, and she made it.
Well, she seemed very pathetic too in that moment, begging for him, and so I like in the end.
That in the end, like, no, I was gonna fuck you fuck you up one last time.
And it's also just like really fascinating that like she makes her choices fully knowing what the potential outcomes are going to be, and in this moment, we're shown that Geralt tried to make a choice without, like, he didn't want to make a bad choice, and by doing that he ends up making a bad choice, and instead of just picking like one of the two options, he made like a third that ended up not being a third choice. And she goes into all of her things fully committed, because he's like, man, did I make the, because she has a prophecy that night where she's like, you're always going to wonder if you made the correct choice. And Renfrey never wonders. Renfrey makes her choices and is like goes in with the decision she has made fully. And so it's a nice thing. And it also, because one of the our comments mentioned that this happens like decades before The Last Wish, and Queen Calanthe is 15 and just made her first battle, like won her first battle. Also, I love Calanthe. I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, she's really cool.
She's great. But anyway, and that's the end of the story. And somebody says, Stregobor says to him, like, because Stregobor comes out and is like, "Good job, Geralt." Like, "Oh, what a bro!" And Geralt's like, "Get the fuck over."
And no, he doesn't just say that. He's like, "All right, let's grab the wagon and go vivisect her."
Yeah.
Dissect.
Well,
In this case. But yeah, no, and so like the book is never like, oh well, Stregobor, you know. No, Stregobor is like a complete dick. And then the rest of the townsfolk think that Geralt just like murdered.
Slaughtered. And his friend, the alderman, has to be like, "You can't come back here ever again. Like, you have unfortunately done something that, like, never come back to Blaviken," which sucks because, like, at the start he was so friendly to Geralt. And so it's this, but Stregobor says to him, "You will never know unless we open her if you did the right thing, you know?" And
That's a disgusting power move. But Geralt's
also
like, no, we're giving her a proper funeral.
like we're not doing this. And at the end of that story, there's a brief little thing about Neneka and whatever's happening in the temple.
I would argue that she's fantastic. She was definitely better than Stregobor. Oh my god. She didn't become the monster he was, but she... Oh, do you think so?
No, I mean, no, I was going to talk more about how the book in general frames that kind of thing.
Oh, I thought she didn't become just as bad as him. I just think she
became the monster Stregobor feared her to be.
I get what you're saying.
From an outside perspective.
Okay, never mind.
From
You're
an outside perspective.
You're right. You're fine.
Yeah, I'll talk about that more though with the elves thing. So
yeah.
Oh, by the way, I do want to say, because I feel like I'll forget, even though we haven't gotten to it yet, that story, what was it called? The one with the
elves?
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called.
Well, anyway, that story is my favorite one.
I was really bored for the first half, and then the second half I was like, oh wow, you got it.
I liked the whole thing. I liked the whole wheat thing. I liked the honey thing.
Yeah, that's more on the bottom of my list. I liked it, but it was not my favorite. And the next story we have is the Child of Surprise story / how Geralt accidentally got himself saddled with a child. Surprise!
Sort of by accident, but also kind of his fault.
No, 100% his fault. He just like didn't think. He was like, lightning striking twice in the same spot. The odds. Anyway, this story, the lead up to this is him having a moment of like, he's digesting what has happened with the Renfrey situation. Like, did I make the right choice? And he's also like, my fate is coming for me. I can't believe I was so stupid to open myself up to this situation that would saddle me with this, and it's gonna come for me at some point, and I wish it wouldn't. And he's literally having a conversation with the priestess who is on a vow of silence, and he's like, "Thanks for talking with me," and I'm like, "My dude, you just trauma vomited on this poor, like, she was just minding her business and you were just
he
like..."
He literally came to find her and was like, "I need to talk." Well, it's because, like, Neneka technically is like, "Oh, she's your therapist, go talk to her." Like, I mean, that's
to be fair, yeah, that is true, yeah.
Yeah, and so, anyway, he went and was like, childhood trauma. Adult trauma.
Like, just on this poor girl's lap. But basically, it sets up the idea that a couple years ago, something happened that has tied his fate in a way that he is not happy with. And this is that story. Geralt gets hired by the Queen of Sintra to go to a ball. It's not actually a ball, but it's a big dinner because her daughter...
also known as a ball.
Yes.
Oh, more like a feast.
No, a ball is with dancing.
Okay,
Nobody was planning on dancing.
Fine.
It was like a fete.
Yeah, less so than fete still had
It's a
dancing.
feast, though.
It's a feast. It's a big dinner. And it's in honor of her, a bunch of princes and lords of the realms and different countries have come to put their bid in for her daughter's hand in marriage.
And we learn in this world there are island people.
Yeah.
Island kingdoms.
Island kingdoms,
But
yeah.
they do say, like, island people.
It was kind of funny, yeah. Because for a little bit you're like, are they Jamaican? And then you realize, no, it's just...
No, they're more like Inuit.
I don't even think so.
If we're talking about the Skellige. Like, no.
The queen of Sintra is Calanthe.
Yes.
Calanthe is like such a bomb ass character.
I love her
She's
so
great, and she was one of the moments where it's like
She's
for whatever sexist criticisms there are of the book, the author is very interested in
portraying women as strong individuals.
Yeah, and
But
also
in different positions.
and also just the female characters themselves. He's interested in them and their stories.
Yeah.
And there isn't like a sense of like, I don't want to have to talk about them, or they just exist for Gerald to bang.
Even Pavetta seemed very interesting despite having no character.
Or
It's
like
because
2 words of dialogue.
but there's something to be said about her body language that's described and what she doesn't say being something more to be said. Like, there's a lot being said there, especially in comparison to Calanthe and her machinating or whatever. But another thing is I wanted to say, she's basically a good version of Cersei.
If Cersei went to war.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is sort of Cersei's whole problem is that she can't go to war.
Yeah.
We'll get to it, guys, in one of the chapter readings at some point. And so she's a great character. She's tough, but she's smart.
Yeah.
Her and she has.
She's the furry.
Okay, I don't even know what that's in reference to.
No?
The furry? Calanthe?
Oh, I sorry, I was reading Pavetta over there. She's the weird
Oh.
quiet girl. Sorry. I was like,
Calanthe?
no, I'm sorry. I was directly talking to Valerie in that moment. My bad.
Okay, alright, that was weird. But yeah, so Calanthe has Gerald, I don't know why I keep doing that, dress up as like a noble to sit next to her during the feast, and he's like, okay, can you finally tell me why I'm here and what I'm doing? Like, I hear there's a monster around, is that what this is about? And she's like, meh, meh. And he's like, do you want me to kill some people? Because I'm not going to do that.
Because she's like, I need you to make sure that my daughter only marries this guy. There's something that is going to try stop that from happening, and I need you to take care of it. And he's like, once again, mistaken for a fucking mercenary, not my bag. And they have a fight on price.
This fight, though, is so good. It's because Calanthe obviously demands respect, and she's like, you don't speak to royalty like that, or you don't speak to somebody in my position. And he's like, the fuck I do? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And he just bulldozes right through, and I loved that. I do like that he's badass enough to be like, nobody holds dominion over me.
Yeah, it's a really good verbal sparring, and it kind of this story is interested in what people think of Witchers and their place in the world. And so this is kind of where you first see he's like, no, I don't kill people, and she's like, I didn't think you did, you weirdo. And that's kind of where they go from there. And he's like, okay, well, what are you gonna pay me? And she's like, well, I will figure it out later.
And then it's also if you do this as a favor to me, you can name your price. If I hire you, I pick the price. And there's this interesting banter about like services versus favors. And but anyway, very quickly, people are like, I'd like to marry Pavetta, not this person, and she's like, no. She's marrying the Skellige guy. Like, that's it. That's what's happening. And there's also so it's the guy from Skellige who wants to marry Pavetta, and then there's his, like, uncle or his, like, male chaperone who's with him, and, like, that guy and Calanthe are, like...
Yes, very much so. Also, I like what Chris says, though. Pavetta was a 15-year-old girl that got groomed. I don't think... Her not having lines is on purpose. Yeah, exactly. That's the way it comes off, too. She's being used as a piece.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the story is somewhat about to an extent, though maybe not as explicitly as it could have been. But basically, up shows this knight who with like spiky armor who comes in and is like, and he's got his mask on, and he's like, I would like to marry Pavetta.
Yeah, he's like,
I come to claim what is rightfully mine.
And I'm the one that's gonna marry Pavetta. I saved her father years ago, and he was like, yo, as payment, what do you want? And he was like, yo. Law of surprise. If you, whatever is a surprise to you that you get, I'll take that. And so, like, law of surprise, it could be like you get a dog. Like so you come home and there's a dog there, or like
you get a wart,
or you
like how far does this go?
I don't know.
Or like you get a really good crop, or you find like a cool coin. You can find out your wife's pregnant, and now the guy that you law of surprised it with has a fate claim. on your fucking child. And this is a calculated move on our knight's part, and we'll find out why. Because he's just everybody's like, take your helmet off, and he's like, I'll do so at the stroke of midnight. And you're like, and Calanthe's like, okay, buddy. Like, and you can tell this is the guy Calanthe's been waiting for. She does not like this guy. She's like, I don't care about what my fucking husband promised you.
He's
I don't
dead.
care about fate. He's dead. I'm not giving my
I like
daughter
that. I like that.
to some rando fucking dude. And the entire time, Geralt keeps looking at Pavetta.
I
And
love that.
looking at this guy and his coin. He has a medallion. And when magic is happening, it like vibrates and does stuff, and the coin's like the whole time. Like, Jesus Christ, William.
Well, I didn't say anything.
Yeah, you did it.
What did he just say?
Nothing. And so
He said, yeah, it does, because I was saying the amulet vibrates. But I know.
That's a good question, huh? And I love how, like, everyone in this story is constantly haggling. Like, there's something so very real and mundane about, like, you know, like the queen is grumpy because she's like, no, I'm not going to give you this thing because I wasn't the one. She's kind of trying to get out of paying the price of it. But, like, she also kind of has to be careful.
Yeah, because other members that are there are like, it's fate. You have to do this, Calanthe. Like, if your husband promised, you stuck, girl. Like,
But
do you
then-
break promises?
This is a feudal system. If
Yeah.
you, as the Lord, do not uphold your word,
And-
like, we trust you.
And the guy from Skellige is like, what are your promises worth, Calanthe, if you do not honor this? And she's like, bitch. And then Geralt goes, well, actually, Pavetta has to choose you because the law of surprise is that by fate, she will end up choosing you of her own accord. You don't just get her because you say fate is happening. It is fate that you and her will end up together. Like, that's how this works, buddy boy. And they're like, Pavetta, you want to, and so Calanthe's like, Pavetta, you want to go to him? And she's like, mm-hmm. And she, like, goes and she, like, or she's still sitting there, and everybody's like, the fuck? Why? And then he was like, see, this is good. And then, like, it's midnight. The bell has rung for midnight. Take off your helmet. Oh, no, it's a spiky porcupine man. And it's like, yes, I've been cursed, and da-da-da-da-da. And then, I don't know,
There's a fight.
breaks
It ends
out.
up that
and then
Pavetta has, like, magic
Yes,
powers.
and
But like massively
Part of-
intense magic powers.
And the sense you get that it is tied to her emotions and her voice. And so I took part of her silence as
Yes.
her trying to hold in her emotions because she knows
yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was a
Yeah.
tool for the
she
grouping.
wants to be with Hedgehog Boy. And
This book is great.
she knows that her mom wants her to marry someone else. And so I got the sense that Pavetta was just sitting there with her mouth tight as heck because she didn't want to let her emotions get the better of her and cause problems.
That's another. I think those are two things go hand in hand.
But the thing is, you also get the vibe that this is the first time something like this has happened, which doesn't lead itself as much for that. But anyway, the fight breaks out, and Pavetta just opens her mouth and starts screaming, and suddenly the chairs are flying. Calanthe literally, on her throne, just gets yeeted across the room, falls. The Skellige guy goes and has to grab her. Everything's happening. There's this guy named Mousak. He's the wizard / druid of the palace. And him and Geralt, like, know each other, and they're like, oh god, we gotta get her to shut up, like, we're gonna have to try and knock her out. But then the weird noise animal guy starts making weird noises and punching the bagpipes, and it surprises Pavetta so much she stops for a second, and then they knock her out.
There was a really funny part that, and I don't know why it was so funny, but the Porcupine Knight had said something that, like, shocked everyone, and one of the people immediately starts to try to pull a plank of wood off of the table to fight with, and I don't know why, but something about that as, like, drunken behavior just struck me as really funny.
Yeah, I think the story overall is very funny.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites because of that. But anyway, so everyone has to get brought to Calanthe's rooms later and to discuss everything. And the knight takes on, like, he's turned into a human, and because it's actually after midnight. Calanthe was she was upset about the whole situation, so she made sure the midnight bell rang too early so that he'd still look like a porcupine man. And basically you find out that he's like, well, I just love her, and I just want to be with her, and this was the way I did it.
I came here to see what my prize was, but then I met Pavetta.
No, he'd met Pavetta from before. Like, they knew each other previously.
Yeah, remember?
No, yeah, that's what I mean.
Previously.
Became, like, a while ago. And I mean, again,
Yeah. And Pavetta and him end up meeting kind of on accident. They fall for each other. They have the sex-ins. And so when this happened, he was like, nah, I'd like to be with Pavetta. And Pavetta's like, yes, I do want to be with him. And Geralt kind of saved his life. And Calanthe's like, okay, fine. If you actually love him and he loves you, that's fine. And I'll marry the guy from Skellige. And he's like, the guy from Skellige is like, yeah? I've asked you before. And you said no. And she's like, fuck it, it's fine. And then she's like, okay, Witcher, I'll pay you because you did the service. Everything turned out okay. And the hedgehog boy, was like, no, he saved my life. And Clancy's like, no, this is my thing. So he gets
learn that your mother-in-law doesn't like to be interrupted.
And so she gives him her necklace, and then Hedgehog Boy is like, no, I do want to pay you. You saved my life and allowed for this to happen. How can I repay you? And Geralt, being an absolute dumbass, is like, whoa, surprise, my dude! Let's go with that! And then immediately, the Hedgehog Boy goes, no, Pavetta, no! And Glenty's like, oh god! And she's like, yeah, I am pregnant! And they're like, fuck! And you're like, now Geralt has...
Okay, all right. So what I think what's going on here is that it's the book is the story is somewhat a meditation on the role of witchers, because at the end, Hedgehog Boy is like, "Oh, I thought you were going to be a terrible person, but actually you're not." And then like also the queen is like, "Yeah, witches are awesome." And so at the end, I felt like he was almost like testing them a little bit of like, "No, I'm a witcher. We need to be perpetuated in these ways. Like you thought it was awesome, but this is the price you have to pay for us to exist in this world." And so, like, I kind of like that, because in the TV series, it's literally like he just forgets the law of surprises is a thing, when it was just the whole point of the story up until that part.
Mm-hmm.
And so I liked how it was done in the book better.
Yeah, and so, and Allie Snow also says that. In the show, it felt offhand, and in the book, it feels more intentional. And it is, but he's, like, mad at himself for making that choice and, like, doing it. Because now he has this, like, and Geralt's relationship with Ciri is going to be father-daughter-esque, unlike, Hedgehog Man and Pavetta.
Pubescent girl.
Yeah, because, like, it's a choice.
It's one of these things where it's like, this book came out in 1993. I feel like if it came out nowadays, he's not making her 15. Yeah. He just was kind of going with the language of the fairy tales where it's like 15 years old. Because she doesn't really act like a 15-year-old. But we're at 2 hours, and we're only halfway through the book.
We need to summarize the shit out of it.
We have 2 more stories.
The
elf story.
Okay, yeah, all right.
We have elf story, and
let's fast forward a little more.
Well, elf story basically starts off with he meets a guy called Don Dillion. And this is a bard that everyone finds very annoying, and this is the story of how they first met.
He's a very famous bard who's incredibly well educated and knows a lot of stuff, and is really funny, and has sang about the exploits of Geralt across the land.
No.
Not yet.
No, that doesn't happen.
They don't have the toss of the Witcher.
But that's what his role is.
I think in later books. In this one, they're just meeting for the first time.
No, there's like a specific line at one point, I don't know whether it's now or later, where it says, it's with Neneka, when he comes to visit Neneka. And,
I don't remember. You may be correct.
I don't remember.
I am correct.
I
am.
And, basically, he kind of finds Dandelion a little bit annoying, but, like,
we actually don't get the meeting for the first time.
This is their first, like...
It's just them going down the road, being chill, like, and it's their first adventure together.
Yeah, and basically...
They'd already met each other prior to that moment.
They had, but this was their first story together.
This is, like, their first, like...
But he also, like, at this point has not sung, like, and as far as, like, this is just their first adventure. They've just met a little bit ago. They're friendly.
So they go to this village at the edge of the world, and like they're having problems with this weird thing they call devil, but Geralt is
Diavel.
Like, Diavel, and Geralt's like, that's not a thing, guys, and it ends up being like a satyr who likes to play tricks on people.
Yeah,
and getting kind of annoying. This whole thing takes a long time, and I wasn't that interested in it, though there is funny things with like how much of country yokels they are.
love this story because of the young girl who is the earth goddess. And I really liked the racism happening between the elves and the people, and I like the portrayal of that, and I like the discussion. But more than anything, one of my favorite scenes is Geralt tussling with the Sylvan and then like kicking each other in the crotch.
Yeah, and spitting on each other for no
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was pretty funny. But anyway, so he gets and catches the Sylvan, and right as they're about to do that, he gets captured. Him and Dandelion get captured by elves. And this whole time, you have never really met an elf. They just said that there's some elves
That are
living
hiding.
out in the hiding. And basically, what you find out is that elves, like, because they get captured by these elves and they get taken back to the camp and they talk to the elves. And you find out that the elves are, like, an endangered species, essentially. Like, they've been pushed out of their homes to this new...
As humans have spread.
Yeah, and so, and, like, this story introduces like such a cool character, which is like the elf lord who shows up to talk to them. I love the way the voice actor did him. He had such a quiet power to
Yeah,
him,
really did.
and he talked about like, no, we are not like you. The land would give us what we wanted instead of you. That we
Taking it.
carve
You
in and
carve
bleed it.
with the rakes and hoes and take from it.
And Mother Earth gifted it to us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's just it's connecting to that idea that like the world has changed from when the elves were the ones were the like main humanoid force on it, and how they're gonna do this cruel thing.
Well, because also before this, I forgot to mention, but in the Frame story, he was talking with Dandelion about how like he kind of needs to go south because there's not enough people really wanting monsters dead anymore. Like he saw a monster and everyone was like, "Don't kill it. That's like a cool tourist attraction."
Yeah,
so
that's
the world.
the princess's favorite dragon, and then like now people instead of wanting him to kill Rusalkas and stuff are like, I want to fuck it, and he's like, I'm not capturing humanoids for people to sleep with. Things are weird right now.
Yeah.
Or like there's a troll where they're like, "Don't kill the troll. He actually takes care of the bridge very nicely."
Yeah, and his fees are actually
Very
less than the
reasonable.
taxes if the government took over taking care of the bridge.
Which is very funny.
And then he does other businesses too down there. It mentioned it briefly. Like he also does like something on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's having this discussion with the elves in the light of like the witchers themselves are also beginning to run out of work and lose their place in the world. And so the thing about this story is that I liked it a lot more than I liked it in the TV show. Because in the TV show, the elves felt very...
Elf.
Well, they just felt very Native American-y analog. And in the story, it reads... and so like, and I find that very... dumb. And also I never liked the message of like, oh, the endangered minority that like needs to get with the program now kind of a story. But here to me it felt a lot more like these were just Tolkien elves than like supposed to be like Native American analogs. And I like that they're still haughty, they still see humans as monkeys, but like they have faded into the West, so to speak. And Geralt is like, look, like you guys just gotta integrate. Like that's all that's happening is the world is changing, and they're like, we're not gonna do that. That sucks.
Yeah.
And I really like that because there is such a power to that conversation he has with the Elf Lord, and it's like it's very sad and somber.
Like, yeah, why do we have to? You have changed our world, and now we must comment. It is, and this problem is resolved because they're like, we have to kill you. No one must find out that we're using the Sylvan goat guy as a spy on the humans and to get us stuff. So we have to kill you. And then a goddess shows up and has quiet, silent conversations with everyone.
Telekinetic.
Conversations with everyone. And then the elf is like, okay, boys, you go. Also, somebody ruined Dandelion's loot. And the goddess is like, here's a fancy loot for you, my boy.
There's a really cool portrayal of madness in this scene, too. Because one of the female elves is particularly aggressive. And Dandelion's all tied up. And she's just being incredibly, bitterly, horribly nasty to him. And like, you know, she like beats the shit out of both of them a little bit, and she's kind of wild. Everybody else is like kind of eating food or checking out their supplies and stuff, but she's antagonizing them. And once Geralt breaks her nose and she's like got her face in the dirt, the elf lord comes around and they have a small discussion over her like her madness. And I like how the elf lord acknowledges it and is like, yes, so and so has unfortunately been afflicted by the malice your people have instilled in us.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not her fault, kind of vibe. Like, we have to now deal with her
Yeah.
because of you guys.
Yeah, no, I really liked the framing of it. Again, I think it was something where I was afraid it was going to be a Native American analog, and it isn't. It's actually kind of interesting in terms of talking about progress and stuff. That was also something with Renfrey, is that the whole like trope of like, oh, the victim becomes the monster that we have to beat. Like, is not a very comfortable one, but that story isn't quite interested in that necessarily. It's interested in telling other things through the Renfrey story. And I feel like a lot of times the book is able to do enough to give space there. Again, the elves come off a lot more like Tolkien elves than they do like One with the Land, Native American elves.
It's more like they're like literally another species from a different era that like is it's not just, you know, the people that came before, although it is that too.
It doesn't quite have like an indigenous feel.
Yeah. So yeah, this was probably one of my least favorite. I had the same problem Will did, where for like the first
I loved every moment of
half of it, I was like,
the comedy in it got me really going. I loved the accents at the beginning.
I just was kind of like, this has nothing to really to do with Gerald.
Because we just had like.
I'm not saying it's good. I really like the aesthetic of it more than anything else. Not the actual story. It's the aesthetic I like.
And then the last story is Yennefer of Vengerberg, even though they pronounce it differently in the audiobook, and I don't remember how they pronounce it. It doesn't have like it's like a
Vengerberg.
It has a different sound to it. But anyway, and this is the story of how Dandelion and Geralt went fishing and got a genie thing out of a river. And it messed up Dandelion's voice, and so they had to go find someone to heal it, and they go to a town that has a sorceress, and everybody's like, that sorceress is kind of wild, you know, be careful. And there he goes.
But she's well known for how powerful
she is. They go find the sorceress, and she's like just had like a huge party. Everyone's drunk and like passed out because it's the morning. And there's a guy wandering around being like, I gotta find apple juice. And it's the guy whose house this is. He's like a political figure in this town. And he's searching for apple juice. And Geralt helps him. And then the guy passes out. And he's like, I guess I'll take apple juice to the sleeping sorceress. And he goes in. And he meets Yennefer. And Yennefer was like asleep naked under some covers. And he doesn't see anything. And Geralt, he looks away. He's a little embarrassed.
Even if he stares at the invisible boobs.
Yes, openly. And I love how she calls him out on it. But anyway, and so Yennefer's like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, I don't know who you are.
Guys, she's so bitchy.
How I Met Your Adoptive Mother.
So bitchy. It's great.
She's very, but you know what's nice is she's nice bitchy.
I think she's bitchy.
No, she's nice bitchy. At the beginning. I'm not saying throughout the whole story.
Okay.
At the beginning, because she's like, I'll hear you out. Because that was kind of like, honestly, I wasn't expecting that. And so then, you know, she's like, oh, but
you're a sorceress for hire. Like, that's literally, you people come to you, tell you what they need, and you say, yes, I'll do it, or no. Like,
okay, that's my job. No, but it just, her demeanor just seemed like nice bitchy at the beginning. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I didn't think that hard into it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
she's not annoying bitchy or overly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
She's just
right.
Bitchy.
Yes, she's just.
Oh, I don't mean nice bitchy as in she's a nice person. I mean nice as in like a nice version of bitchy. My bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Like I usually get very irritated by a lot of bitchy women because like it just, or like in books and stuff like that. I mean, I guess in real life too, but because like sometimes it like slows down things in a plot because they're an impediment that has to become, so it depends on the character obviously, but no, so anyway, so Yennefer takes an invisible bath and the suds form around her breasts and we get a very long description on that, and I loved that scene.
It was not that long,
but we get the soap.
It's like a paragraph.
We get the soap, we get how the water does it, we get her putting on her black
I mean, that is sexy.
Naked. Again, this scene is without actually
It's a
talking
fantasy.
about
It's
nipples.
a self-insert.
Yeah,
Oh.
without actually talking about nipples or actual skin or anything, Sapkowski is like, here is a fantasy sequence. This is, you know what's sexy? Not seeing the naked woman. So I'm going to literally do that, literally, and you are not going to see the naked woman, but you're going to see, like, bubbles around a boob shape, but there's no boob
A
there.
tantalizing curve.
Anyway, so, he tells Yennefer what happened. Yennefer's like, okay, I'll help your friend, in a bit. But you know, who happens to have the seal for the genie bottle? And he's like, why do you care? Genie aren't. And she's like, no, don't worry about it. And he was like, Dandelion has it. And she's like, gotcha. So they end up like portaling to the place where Dandelion is being kept. She does her stuff. He talks out with this elf who happens to live in this town. And I was like, you have to be careful. Because he was like, based on the way everyone was talking about her, she seems like pretty nice. Compared to other wizards, that was a pleasant experience. And the elf was like, listen.
I have a
That's
giant
like-
crush on her. I know her fault.
But he's like, that's like saying a scorpion is better looking than a spider because it has a pretty tail. Like, you gotta be careful, my dude. And he's like, no, I'm good. Don't worry. So he goes into the room, and she has drawn like a pentagram on the ground, and she's got candles. And he's like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? And she's like, basically, she's gonna summon the djinn. And he's like, not with Dandelion here, you're not. And she's like, no, this is what I'm doing. And don't worry about it. It's none of your fucking business. And he's like, no, if Dandelion gets hurt, and she's like, he won't get hurt. Don't worry.
And then she does the "this is not the Jedi you are looking for" spell on him
Yeah.
to get him to go away.
She mind controls him. I liked how, like, again, she comes off as very intelligent. Geralt doesn't just, like, wipe the floor with everyone all the time. Like, he really has distinct weaknesses. And I think there's a certain extent, too, to which the author is very fond of Yennefer, even if, like, he's not trying to paint her as the best character.
Yeah.
Like, or the best person.
And so she sends Geralt into he wakes up and he has no idea what he's done. He's in a prison. And
He's gone very, very humorously around town to punish all of the people who were honestly pretty shitty to Yennefer, and such as smacking them on the bottom and
in
proudly
public.
proclaiming that feminism is important.
Stuff like that. It was, and again, this is something where it then doesn't totally make sense with the Renfrey story, because he beats up a bunch of guards without killing them, and he's also like just going around town making an ass of himself, and like nobody, like if they're so anti-Witcher, why would they have been this tolerant of him doing these kinds of things?
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, they were going to jail him.
yeah, no, it's true, but it's just
Yeah.
one of these things where like it felt a little bit more. It felt a little inconsistent with like how grim dark and like
Yes.
he has to do this.
Yeah, the last story, the Yennefer story, definitely is more lighthearted in nature in
Yeah.
a way that I actually liked, but it doesn't feel consistent
The
necessarily.
last three are more lighthearted than the first three.
Yeah, actually, that's very true.
Anyway, so he ends up meeting with like the council of people. There's the mayor and the head priest.
Who's my second all-time favorite character in the entire book. The priest guy is so funny. Be quiet now. I will pray. And then it's like, you mean you'll cast your spell? I do not cast spells. I pray to God.
It was, but anyway, he tells them what happened, and they were like, "Oh, that makes sense. We got you. She's crazy. We don't like her." And he, and basically, she tries to summon the djinn, and it's not going well. The djinn is her spell is wrapped around it like a web, but it's fighting against it, and they're like, "Yo, this is tearing." The mayor's like, "It's tearing up half the thing," and the priest is like, "Let it kill her, and then we're rid of that problem." And the mayor's like, that doesn't work if I no longer have a city I'm mayor of.
I do like how the mayor is kind of like, okay, go get the water to this area so that way we can prevent fire. So he's like collateral damage immediately, which really makes him feel like a real character.
Mm-hmm.
And then so then Geralt tries to go back in and save Yennefer. Yennefer is like, I've got to do this, and then you get a cut where it's going to Geralt with Yennefer, and then the guys in the city talking about what might be happening, but are giving you the priest is like, oh, I've just realized the wishes, because there's this one point where Geralt actually turns a man into a bursting tomato, because the guy's like, what do you wish for, being a dick? And he's like, I wish you would explode. And then he just explodes like a burst tomato. And the priest realizes, oh, that was his second wish. it wasn't Dandelion that had the wishes, because this whole time you think Dandelion made 2 wishes and the Jinn is waiting for him to do.
What was Geralt's
third.
first wish again?
Yes, it was. Because what happened is when the Jinn showed up, he picked up the talisman for the Jinn, and he said an exorcism that he'd heard one time.
He said fuck off.
That he didn't even know what it was to the Jinn. And it ends up actually they had been lying to him, and it was just a version of like fuck off.
Yeah, it was fuck off and go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Which is hysterical. But he says that, and that ends up being his unintentional first wish. And that's what he told the Jinn to do, and the Jinn fucks off, and one assumes fucks himself.
That is actually really funny, though.
Yes. And then his second wish is, I wish you'd blow up, or I want you to blow up, and then the guy blows up. And so now he has his last wish, and they're like, the priest's like, I don't know if Geralt has realized this is what's happening, but I hope he does not tell Yennefer that it is to his
immediately
benefit.
Tells Yennefer.
It is to your benefit, because eventually, like, he tells Yennefer, like, actually, the reason this isn't working, and then she goes, make your last wish, do it, and then I can capture him. And he's like, my dude, you're literally tired, you have barely any magic left, there's no way, if this thing is released, you're going to capture it. And so he ends up, because the priest is like, there is a way he could use his last wish. And it's so funny because it keeps cutting back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's like, there's a way for him to use his last wish if he ties his fate to Yennefer's. And it could get both of them out of this. And he ends up making a wish, and we don't know exactly what it was. Yennefer heard it. And in the aftermath of the Jinn disappearing, she turns to him and she goes, I heard your last wish. Why would you say that? You've effectively tied yourself to me. You've condemned yourself to me. Why would you do that? And he was like,
don't you know?
No,
he literally says, can't you tell?
Yeah. And basically, he down bad. He
down bad.
He down real bad. Anyway, they kiss, and he's like, and that was it. Never shall I want to kiss another woman, even though later I will sleep with this other person. This is it. I'm Yennefer for life. They do the, and there's this part where like they all come and they're like, Yesker's like, I'm so all them to
And then the one elf dude that had the crush.
well, because they hear Yennefer moaning.
Yes,
and
it's very funny.
And they think,
oh no, but she must be hurt. But you know what's really nice is that earlier in the story, Geralt was asking him, he's like, are you in love with her? And he's like, I do not use grand words to describe my
words
feelings.
Of magnitude.
Yeah, words of magnitude. And then he peeks into the window at this point and he's like, okay, let's go away. And they're like, what's wrong? And he's like, I use words. If I were to describe what's happening in there, I would have to use a grand word. And that's kind of like very romantic.
Yeah, again, the stories have this kind of ring to them at times that like feel profound or deeply like engaging. And so that's more or less the end of it. And then there's some ending stuff in the Frame story with,
but it doesn't matter.
Which doesn't matter at all. It's interesting because I think it's a fun story, but as a romance, it doesn't really work. It kind of feels real perfunctory.
Yep. It would have worked if this was the first instance they interacted with each other and then other stuff happened and then eventually they consummate something. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, it does everything and now he's in love with her.
Yeah, because the story does a good job of building the sexual tension between them, but the actual romantic is not really there. I think the only way to really read the story is as though the story never really mentions it as in conversation with the Renfrey story, and that this is a second chance to redo that almost a little bit, in that both her and Yennefer are kind of wild cards. But the more I think about it, the more I don't really think the two apply much.
I agree. But yeah, so this is as a romance, it doesn't work. As an overall story and introduction to a character that he's tied his fate to, pretty interesting. But I would have liked, if he was beginning to fall for her, but nothing happened, nothing was consummated, she didn't realize anything, and then, they go about their ways, and then a while later, something happened, but it just feels...
Look, not that I necessarily want this version of this book that I'm about to describe, but I think one successful way of utilizing the themes in this is having a different story with Yennefer in it, or having her be featured in a different story, and have the theme be the tide. Because, again, the name of the book is The Last Wish. So that's what tells me it should be about Yennefer, if that's what it has to do with, is that his last wish has to do with the story with Yennefer. And so I kind of wish, like, I mean, there's like a lot of ways that I'd be happy with it coming like about, but it would be interesting if we got, you know, a lot of some of the stories that were used have to do with her or something like that after they had met and everything, and then you could go back to that first thing. And the frame story is that, like, let's pretend the Siri thing is differently framed or something. Just put that to the side for a second. And then that the fate coming to get him is what the last switch made it happen, which is his fate is tied to hers. So if that were all to come together, that would be very thematically cleaner. But
No, I agree. I mean, the thing about it is that the book wasn't even originally called The Last Wish. It was just called The Witcher.
yeah,
So, like, yeah, there's not that level of planning in the
Yeah,
book.
and that's fine.
It's messy.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
But overall, it's messy, but I really liked this book. His writing style is kind of distant, which really worked for me. But at the same time, he's very good at dialogue and building these characters. And that was something that, like, this was so refreshing to read after all the shit we've read.
Yeah, it was one of the. It was an easy read. It was easy. It just was.
It was very entertaining.
I think again, this is the book. I'm so much more disappointed in the television show now that I've read the book. And the book, like, it's just smarter in a lot of small ways that they could have done, and they just didn't.
It's bizarre to me. The book lends itself to an episodic nature, and they just really fumbled it.
Yeah, they really
Yeah,
do.
what the hell?
Yeah, and like there's so many small things that they could have incorporated in each of the stories, and instead they just, I don't know, like you were saying, they restructure some of them, which makes sense, but like the rest of them, you know, and Book Geralt is such a nice character because he's just such a normal dude, and it's really nice to kind of read about that. I am interested in reading more of the books, not all of them because there's about 100 hours on Audible of them, but I think definitely reading some more would be good.
Yeah, I'd be down. Thanks for being here. Thank you to our patrons that are here in this right now. If you'd like to join and do something like this with us, join our Patreon, like we mentioned before. And again, like and subscribe. Comment fish if you're cool. If only
The real Witcher was the friends we made
along the way.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
about it.
That's about it.
Thank you all for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.